This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Best of the season to you and happy holidays as we count down to the new year and fire up another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis with you. Big game tonight for the Winnipeg Jets as they look to break their 3-game losing streak downtown at Canada Life Centre against the visiting Vancouver Canucks. And a big night for Winnipeg Jet forward Sam Gagner, who will play in his 1,000th regular season National Hockey League game and will be celebrated before puck drop tonight. We've got a great lineup of guests tonight, really focused in on a big game for the Winnipeg Jets. Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press, our pal Brandon Rewucki from the Skates and Plates podcast. And to get the latest on the Vancouver Canucks, Jeff Paterson, our old pal from the old station now with Rink-Wide Vancouver and a contributor to Sick Harris and Price. And of course, today is your last and final opportunity to qualify for tomorrow's championship marble race in the Consolidated Supply and Winnipeg Sports Talk Tournament of Champions. We've had such a fun time running marble races throughout the last few weeks. Qualifying 3 marbles a day. Tomorrow is the big day, and whoever wins that race tomorrow will receive 2023 Bomber season tickets, courtesy of your favorite daily sports show in Winnipeg and our friends at Consolidated Supply. So make sure to hang around towards the end of the program and make sure you are in for last call on marbles qualification. Of course, big thanks to Consolidated Supply for making the Tournament of Champions happen, as well as all the great sponsors that make this show happen each and every day, including Princess Auto, Coolbet Canada, Little Brown Jug, Canadian Club Whiskey, Culligan Water, Vita Health Fresh Market, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Manitoba Battery, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, and of course, our friends over at Not Auto Corp. Let's get Michael Remis in here to get things going. Remo, what's up? How are you?
I'm doing good, Huss. I'm counting down till tonight's game. I think the Jets are going to get back on track. And yeah, it's not too cold out, so I've actually been able to go outside and do stuff, you know?
Yeah, it was nice yesterday. It was really nice yesterday, all things considered. And I know it's going to get a little chilly tonight. If you are going to the game, I know it's going to dip down below -20 tonight. I think I just heard that wind chills will feel like it's around -28. And I think tomorrow's high is only going to be about -14. But outside of that, over the course of the next, sort of 36 hours, we're going to get into a pretty nice spot of negative single digits, of course, highs. Saturday's going to be 7, Sunday -9, and then we'll get to -11. But all in all, seasonal, maybe a little bit above seasonal, and we will take that right now. But honestly, even though I was so cold the last couple of weeks heading into this nice breakup, pretty hard to complain about the weather when you see what's happened around our country and south of the border. I mean, what's happening in Buffalo right now, finding people that have passed away in their vehicles due to that blizzard is just horrible. So, we're tough here. We'll take it. We're going to find out how tough the Winnipeg Jets are tonight and see if they can snap this 3-game losing streak that they're in, which sandwiched, of course, the Christmas break. Those 2 losses on back-to-back nights in Boston and Washington heading into Christmas. And then that tough loss to the Minnesota Wild on home ice to get things going again post-Christmas break. And, Remo, we've got the Vancouver Canucks coming into town tonight. And the Canucks are just one of the weirdest teams in the entire National Hockey League. And I'm looking forward to having J-Pat on a little later on to give us the latest. But for a team that started literally as badly as a team could start, they've sort of dug themselves out of it. I mean, they put a few 3-game winning streaks together, including the one that they're currently on. And they've got themselves above 500 right now into at least striking distance to be in the mix for that wild card race. And I mean, man, there's so many interesting stories around the Canucks too. The future of Bo Horvat, the JT Miller extension that was signed that hasn't kicked in yet. Many of the younger players, Coach Bruce Boudreau. There'll be lots to talk about with Paterson a little bit later on, but to be honest with you, our focus here is even more so on the big milestone of Sam Gagner on a game for the Winnipeg Jets that they really, really do need to snap out of this funk and try and get back in the right direction despite continuing to play with so many key players out of the lineup.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of comments, people in our Facebook or YouTube down on the Jets. Someone commented, hey, the Jets... they can't beat any teams with winning records. I was like, well, what are you talking about? They beat Dallas, who's they're leading the division right now twice in 3 tries. Someone else said the Jets magic has run out like New Jersey. I'm like, have you seen their roster right now? They're missing like a full line. Perfetti, Ehlers, and Wheeler. Not to mention they've got 5 guys who are either picked off waivers or spent time on the Moose. Look, this roster isn't what it's been, but however, you look at Money Puck, and I do every day, Huss, Money Puck chances of winning. They have the Jets, 64.6% chance today with Connor Hellebuck in goal. You look at the lines, they're still a big favorite, according to Vegas. Depending what book, maybe around
I was a little surprised. I mean, I looked at Coolbet earlier this morning, and the Jets were minus 147 favorites, and the Canucks were plus 125. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe we're just so into it here, and maybe we've spent, now that we've had a few losses to talk about, discussing what the issues for the Winnipeg Jets have been, and some things that there frankly just is no solution for until players come back. I sort of thought that might be a lot closer. I thought the Jets might be a slight favorite, maybe minus 120 to even money. That being said, the Jets have won a lot of hockey games this year, and it's not like this is the first time they've done it with a depleted lineup. I mean, really, this started in game number 3 of the regular season when Nikolai Ehlers was out at the time, categorized as day-to-day. We're now waiting for his return at some point into the new year. But, I mean, listen, we can talk about it. Rick Bowness has said, listen, there's no excuses. We can talk about it all you want. And I've said this in the past. A lot of times when you focus so much on all the tough things that are in front of you, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that is not what this head coach is all about or this team is all about. And they're going to need to get it together and put their best foot forward with the guys that are in the lineup tonight to try to get a big 2 points, snap the streak, and get a bit of momentum heading into Edmonton on Saturday night to finish up 2022.
Yeah, I think if they're going to get a win, this is a good opponent, to play against. We're going to hear from Jeff later on the show, but Vancouver, you don't know what you're going to get every night. They don't. I don't think their defense is very good. They certainly have some guys who can score goals. Paterson capable of picking up 5, but he's on the third line. I always get confused by they got the more balanced line distribution in Vancouver. And speaking of balance, the Jets moving away. At least yesterday in the line combos, they had a number of guys missing today. The skate. Not skating was Dubois, Scheifele, Connor, Lowry, Gagner, Stenlund, Morrissey, Pionk, DeMello, and Mike had Rick Bowness also as a non-skater in practice. So, I mean, I think they're just taking rest. We saw Dubois on the postgame with Sarah. He was coughing. He had a bad voice. That cold is still
everyone's sick right
going
now.
around. Yeah, everyone's got it. So they did go with the more balanced lines yesterday, and this is what we're going to assume today's lines are. Shout out to Ken, who tweeted these out. Connor, Dubois, Gagner, Lowry, Scheifele, Kuhlman, Barron, Stenlund, Jonsson, Fjallby, Eyssimont, Gustafsson, Harkins, and then Morrissey, DeMello, Sandberg, Pionk, and Dillon. And Heinola is the one who's getting in today for Kyle Capobianco. Capobianco staying on the ice after practice with Christian Reichel, who was called up today. So that's the latest on the Jets. Hellebuck in net. They did have some guys skating. Ehlers and Manalainen, I think you mentioned that, skated in the morning skate, or it was Schmidt and Perfetti, who also skated with Marty Johnson. And we do have Rick Bowness going through the laundry list. Sounds like a shopping list here of all the injuries. Usually it's like one update. It took him like a minute to get through
It's a long clip. It's a long
Yes.
clip, and we'll get to it in just a minute. As far as the Canucks go, you look at their lines, and Bo Horvat right now, I believe he's second in goals in the National Hockey League right now. I mean, only Connor McDavid has more. Bo Horvat, contract year Bo.
What?
26 goals in 34 games. 39 points on the season. He is having an unbelievable season at a perfect time to do that going into unrestricted free agency. He's playing with Ilya Mikheyev, who is an offseason pickup, and Brock Besser. You've got JT Miller centering Connor Garland and Curtis Lazar. And then, as you mentioned, Elias Paterson with Kuzmenko and Lane Peterson on the third line, and a fourth line of Neil Zayman, Jack Studnicka, and Dakota Joshua. What's interesting about Vancouver is, and you can make some comparisons to the Winnipeg Jets in that, they've got some missing pieces and some moving pieces on the wings, but they're pretty set at center right now as they are set up. I mean, we talked about Bo Horvat and the season he's having. Elias Pettersson is having a great year and somewhat of a bounce back year as well for Elias, who's leading the team in scoring with 16 goals and 42 points. You'd have to think that he probably gets a little bit more playing time than a quote unquote typical third liner, and certainly a big part of that power play. And of course, JT Miller, who is just 4 points off a point a game pace, in the middle as well with Garland and Lazar and Pettersson, Kuzmenko, and Kuzmenko's been a real nice story as well for the Canucks. He's third in scoring right now, so they do have a pretty nice balanced lineup. And I'm not sure, and we'll hear from Rick Bowness in a minute, if that was maybe part of the theory or the thought behind not just stacking up that top line as they had with Mark Scheifele moving up with Kyle Connor and Pierre-Luc Dubois. Because the Winnipeg Jets are going to have to be able to defend, and they're going to have to be on their toes when it comes to their own end, their forecheck, and do some of those details, as Rick Bowness mentioned, a heck of a lot better than they did against the Minnesota Wild on Tuesday night. If they want to get a win against a Vancouver team that, as bad as they looked against the Jets, what was it, about 2.5 weeks ago on that Saturday night game when the Jets, and frankly, embarrassed them 5-1. They bounced back with a huge comeback win against the Seattle Kraken. They beat the Oilers 5-2 in Edmonton. And then they came out of the break by putting up a half a dozen against San Jose. So goals and goal scoring has normally not been an issue for the Vancouver Canucks. But they'll go up against Connor Hellebuck, who certainly will look to have a much better start to the game than he did on Tuesday against Minnesota coming out of the break.
Yeah, I'm curious, what we're going to get from the Lions here tonight. Big opportunity for Sam Gagner in game 1,000, playing with Dubois and Connor. And Mark Scheifele, I mean, he hasn't exactly played with, big scores the last couple of games, and that's why I didn't mind trying to load up line one against a tough opponent. Now you got in a situation where you're favored here against Vancouver, who you beat up pretty good a couple weeks ago. So we'll see how it goes. I'm sure they'll mix up the lines as the game goes. Because I did note yesterday, the Stenlund, Janssen, Fjallby, Kuhlman line was very strong together. And Morgan Barron has also seen some time up there. So it's something to watch as the game goes on. And we're always on Villy watch here. And I'm sure he'll get some time on Power Play 2 at some point. If Power Play 2 even gets on the ice with all the injury.
Yeah, well, first of all, maybe the Jets could get a call or two. That would be nice to actually get on the power play, considering some of the things that have happened that haven't been called as of late. Hey, just a quick aside. We're seeing it's being reported right now that the king of Brazilian soccer, Pelé, who won a record 3 World Cups and really became one of the biggest sports stars and personalities in the world, has passed away at 82. And Remo, I know when I was in Qatar at the World Cup, there was plenty of coverage of Pelé and his health, where he was at. People were hoping that he might be able to see a Brazilian win. Obviously, that didn't happen, and the Argentinians won with Leo Messi winning it all. But even if you're not a soccer person at all, everybody knows Pelé, and what a big loss for soccer in the sporting world today.
Yeah, 82 years old, big, huge legend in soccer, and I agree. Even if you didn't know soccer, you knew Pelé, one of the guys known by the one name And I just remember growing up, you'd always see greatest athletes. It'd be like Gretzky, Jordan, and then soccer would be Pele. So tremendous loss there for Brazil.
Yeah, I just thought we'd mention that. I mean, just before we dive back into the Winnipeg Jets, Canada, man. Canada got it together. And I know it was shocking that they lost to the Czechs in the fashion that they did on Boxing Day. And as we mentioned yesterday, maybe an early wake-up call for the Canadian team, which had so much hype and was such a big favorite going in. And that hasn't been the case in recent World Juniors. To lose the way that they did in game number one maybe is a good thing. Now, the weird thing is their next two games are against Germany, who they smoked yesterday. I believe it was 11-2. And my God, Connor Bedard, is doing things that, close to no one has ever done before. 7 points last night? He is, he's incredible. But now they go up against the Austrians tonight, who will be equally overmatched by Canada. The big game for the Canadians coming up is going to be against the Swedes on New Year's Eve. And I know no USA-Canada game. They're not in the same pool. Hopefully we'll get a Canada-USA game a little bit later on in the tournament. But an absolutely resounding performance by Canada yesterday. And not surprisingly, Remo, even in a game that they totally dominated, none of the young stars on the team tried the Michigan after what happened in game number one.
Yeah, that's the type of Canada game you want to see, Hustler. 11-2 over some country that's not even in the same, league of hockey like Germany. Good to get the confidence going. But did they beat them too badly, Hustler, that you get some bad habits in there? I remember that's always a question. But nice to see Canada, back in the win column against Germany. Surprising to, look at the standings, Hustler. It's, we already had Czech Republic or Czechia beating Canada. How about Slovakia over USA? 6-3. USA usually a powerhouse at these World Juniors. So I think having upsets like these is good for the tournament and makes it more exciting. I'm not a huge fan of, seeing Canada beat up on, Latvia or Germany, whoever it is, 11, where you got the spread like 7 goals in a hockey game.
Well, that's literally what
What was the spread yesterday?
It was 7.5, I believe, 6.5 or 7.5.
A touchdown.
Well, you thought that was bad. Today,
yeah,
it's 10.5.
Like it's hard for me to get excited about.
Here's the thing, though.
That.
Here's the thing. I think the Austrians wouldn't even be in the tournament if the Russians were.
Because Russia.
So they had to round it out. And listen, it's a great opportunity or thrill, I'm sure, for the Austrians to be a part of a great event that's well attended and all of that. But yeah, if the only drama in the game is whether a team can cover a 10.5 goal spread. And this is why, honestly, and I know this is somewhat unpatriotic of me, but I don't really get too into the World Juniors until we get to the playoff round and you've got the games that really mean something. So that being said, I have been watching it. Why? So I could watch and listen to our pal Dennis Bayak do his thing. It's been so good to hear Dennis back. And some of those games in the other pool, frankly, I think are a little bit more interesting, especially as you just mentioned, that Slovakia USA result. Just before we get back to the Jets, Bedard last night, a hat trick and 4 assists. So he tied the Canadian record for points in a game with 7. Dylan Guenther, who's come from the National Hockey, he's almost an afterthought with this team somehow. He had a hat trick. But what's crazy about Connor Bedard right now is he's just 2 goals back for Jordan Eberle's Canadian record for most goals at a World Juniors right now. And I don't know. I think the more and more we see this young guy, we realize that, and I believe it was Scott Wheeler saying that this is going to rival, this year's draft, going to rival the greatest draft that many of the guys covering drafts have ever seen. Which is another reason why, for people that are so gung-ho about emptying the cupboards and doing whatever the Winnipeg Jets can to get help right now, I think it's important to realize what is at stake when it comes to potentially moving that first-round pick this year, regardless of where you finish, because it's stacked, it's deep, and I think even playoff teams could be picking real game changers by the time we get to the second half if the scouts and the people paying attention to it are all right. So listen, we'll maybe have a little bit more on that when Rewucki joins us. Mike McIntyre is going to tee it up coming up right away. But let's get to Rick Bowness. We'll hear from Sam Gagner a little bit later on. The man of the hour. The big question, will we play Mr. Brightside tonight? Hopefully, that would be nice. But as Remo mentioned, right off the bat, everybody wants to know about the latest on the Winnipeg Jets' ever-growing infirmary. And here's a bit of an injury rundown, starting with the latest on defenseman Nate Schmidt.
It's the first time Nate has skated. Ehlers and Saku have been skating. Yeah, it's the first time Nate. I think Nate is the closest at this point. But other than that, there's and Cole probably. He skated with the group. So maybe Cole and Nate would be the closest. The other two are still quite a ways away.
And sorry, closer than Saku?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Wasn't Saku like closer to a week?
Yeah, we thought so. So it's just something's going to come on. It's taking a little longer.
Okay. And since we're on the subject of updates, and there's so many guys, is Mason getting close to being able to skate?
He'll have I think he's got a doctor's appointment on the 4th of January. That's what it is, and then we'll go from there. Okay. But he hasn't skated. He hasn't done a whole lot, so he'd be a while yet.
I think we've covered everything. Logan and Blake would be the other two.
Logan's still a couple of weeks away from skating, for sure. Wheels maybe a couple of days or a week to skate again.
All right, so listen, nobody's coming back to save the day anytime soon. So that lineup that'll be going out against the Vancouver Canucks tonight presumably will be the lineup on the weekend. I will say this, and I mentioned it yesterday. It was interesting that Christian Reichel was the call-up. I'd sort of speculated yesterday that with how red hot Jeff Malott had been, he might have been a nice addition and maybe get the Carson Kuhlman treatment where you come from outside of the dressing room and get plopped in, one of those top couple lines considering the needs right now. But it is going to be Sam Gagner in game number 1,000, skating with Dubois and Connor. Pretty great opportunity for the veteran. And Kuhlman will continue to play with Mark Scheifele. But what's interesting is that Adam Lowry has moved up onto that left wing. And I can't remember the last time Adam Lowry was not at center for the Winnipeg Jets, but it looks like that's the way it'll go. Although I wouldn't at all be surprised if Lowry maybe takes a few more draws. We know how keen Rick Bowness is on getting possession of the puck and how much of a thorn in his side the Jets' lack of success overall in the faceoff circle has been so far this year. So we'll see how that goes. Let's get a little bit more from Bones, though, because with those lineup changes and the new lines, Bones was asked to just talk about what he and the team worked on to get ready for this game tonight, yesterday on the ice.
Well, it's just the little details of the game that have slipped because our last practice was December 3rd. Now, you can only cover so many things in your morning skate, but yeah, it's just simple little things like as the season goes on and the games get tighter and tighter, games are going to be won and lost on face-off execution. So yesterday we haven't been happy with the way we've been winning face-offs. We're not breaking out clean. We worked on that. In the neutral zone, we're not playing as. We've got a lot of guys moving around. We're not playing as fast as we'd like to with the puck, so we worked on that. There's more and more teams stretching, taking pucks back and trying to stretch out the defense a little bit. We haven't had a chance to practice that at all, so we walked through it yesterday. It's not a scenario we want to see at all because we want to be on top of them and not have them the time to take that puck back all deep in their zone to try to spread us out. But if they do, then we want to defend it a little better than we have been.
All right, there is Rick Bowness on what the team worked on yesterday. And as I said, Brandon Ricky's going to come up. But this is a topic that I think many people in the chat have been noticing. You don't get points for a few games, and all of a sudden things gets a lot tighter in the division, and certainly in the neighborhood where the Jets and the Dallas Stars have been hanging out. And here's Rick Bowness on the losing streak and what that's done to the Jets' position in the Central and in the standings.
everyone understands where we are. The players understand all of that. It's now, you lose 3 in a row. It's more, regardless who you play, it's more getting back on that winning track for us and getting the 2 points. And yeah, we're well aware of what's going on. The standings are in the locker room. The players have taken great pride, I think, in being in that top 2 positions all year, and they have, and they've worked very hard. So we want to maintain that, and so it's Vancouver, and we get to understand that the opposition, the timing of it, and all of that, like Minnesota the other night. But regardless, after you've lost 3 in a row, we want to get back on that win column.
All right, there is Bones. We'll talk more about it with Rewucki, as well as Mike McIntyre coming up on the program, as well as get the latest on the visiting Vancouver Canucks a little later on from Jeff Paterson of Rink-Wide Vancouver when he joins us. Before we bring on Brandon Rewucki, don't forget, 2:45 today, one more chance to qualify for the Tournament of Champions, your chance to win Bombers season tickets for 2023 tomorrow in the championship race, courtesy of Consolidated Supply. Consolidated Supply closed for the week, but they'll reopen on January 3rd. In the meantime, looking ahead to 2023, now's a great time to head on over to cte.ca and start thinking about that project, a hot tub, an outdoor kitchen, a golf cart, small engine repair, all the things that Consolidated Supply can do for you and your business right now. Of course, they are open to the public on January 3rd, 1395 Niagara Road East, and online 24/7 at cte.ca. Our friends at Wallace & Wallace thank everyone for their submissions for the Unsung Hero for December. We still do have time to get a few more in, and certainly if you're involved in some sort of a charity, an organization that works in and around the month of December trying to brighten the holidays, and there's been some people that have been making a real impact, donating their time and efforts to it. We'd love to hear from you as well about that. Send us a simple email to unsunghero@winnipegsportstalk.com and let us know about that person in your life, in your community, whether it's associated with the charity that's gone the extra mile to help out at this time of the holidays of such great celebration and togetherness for most, but the most difficult time of the year for many others. Again, the email unsunghero@winnipegsportstalk.com. We've got Peter and Paulette, who of course were our first big winners, and I know they did send that. We'll have that autographed Josh Morrissey jersey out to you. And next week, I'd imagine, early in the new year. And we'll also be selecting our December Unsung Hero as well, early in the new year as well. So get those emails in. And we'll also have a $500 donation to the Dream Factory from Wallace & Wallace on behalf of the Winnipeg Sports Talk listener that made the donation. And even cooler, Josh and Margot Morrissey are going to be matching that as well. So another $1,000 for the Dream Factory and another worthy unsung hero being celebrated on Winnipeg Sports Talk. And hey, with Vita Health Fresh Market, they are ready for the new year. I know many of you are already getting ready for your New Year's resolutions and maybe trying to improve a few things health-wise. It's never too late to get on a bit more of a healthy routine, and Vita Health Fresh Market's a perfect place to start. Great prices on natural and organic supplements, beauty products, and groceries, and Winnipeg's largest assortment of local products, too. And when you shop at Vita Health, you're supporting a great local company, family-owned and operated since 1936. And hey, if you're doing a little partying on New Year's Eve, why not get into 2023 with some healthier snack options, drink mixes, non-alcoholic beverages, and more? It's all waiting for you down at one of 7 Vita Health stores. Empowering people to lead healthy lives. Our friends at Vita Health Fresh Market, 7 Winnipeg locations, including the newest store in Linden Ridge, and online at myvita.ca. And hey, just before we bring Brandon in, I have to give a big shout out to Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery. I had a couple great comments on the service from their staff, from listeners over the course of the last few days. And this goes back, of course, Donnie and the gang have been with us for a while. Paul Edmonds' favorite store during the summer when he's getting ready for his boat and, out fishing. Right now, though, it's all about your car and making sure you're getting from point A to point B, and that sucker's starting when you need it. We're going to have another cold one tonight. Are you ready for it? Well, if not, give them a call, 1026 Logan Avenue, online, manitobabattery.com. And the best part about it is that you're going to save time and money dealing with a great local company. They will deliver it to you citywide as long as you let them know of your order by 3 p.m. So if you get your order in by the end of Winnipeg Sports Talk Live, you'll have your battery later on today. Don't get stuck in the cold. Manitoba Batteries got you covered. 1026 Logan Avenue. Pop in for a free battery check as well, or order online at manitobabattery.com. All right, let's get Rewucki in here. How was your Christmas? I just imagined you spending 14 hours building like a little dollhouse or something for your little girl. Did you, are you getting the new dad Christmas? Are you happy that Christmas is done just because of all the work that goes into it for a new dad?
Yeah, I need a holiday from the holiday. I mean, Remo would know too. He's probably got it worse than I do, so I'm not going to complain too much. But yeah, a lot of puzzle building. Found out that me and the little one who just turned 2 were kind of at the same developmental stage when it comes to puzzles. So it's a legitimate battle when we go toe to toe there. But it's been good, man. It's been good. A lot better than it is for the hockey club right now. But yeah, other than that, it's been pretty solid. And I'm off to the cabin in a little bit too. So it'll be a nice weekend before diet starts Monday or Tuesday. We'll figure that out later. But
yeah, I think we got to go Tuesday on that one. But we'll all be lining up for that, myself included. Well, you mentioned the hockey team. Let's get to it. It was almost inevitable that this was going to happen. I mean, especially considering the quality of teams that they had been playing. I mean, the schedule, which was, I mean, even we talk about the packed NHL schedule, I still don't think I can ever remember 3 weeks like the Winnipeg Jets had heading into Christmas, with 4 games in each week, 5 in 7 in the last. But again, Rick Bowness says there's no excuses. I mean, you have to be ready to go. And it wasn't like I thought they played terribly in Boston or Washington, or even Minnesota, to be honest. But Brandon, when you are playing at the deficit of personnel the way the Winnipeg Jets are right now, you need a few things to go your way. And I don't know, in my opinion, and well, interested in your take on this, it was a few things that didn't go the Winnipeg Jets' way that really broke the game against the Minnesota Wild. I mean, let's face it, Connor Hellebuck doesn't normally let those first 2 shots in. And when you spot a team like Minnesota, a 2-goal lead, you really put yourself in a tough spot. And then were it not for, I mean, Adam Lowry and a couple degrees off on the angle after he beat Gustafsson, if that goes in, you're talking about a 1-0 lead, very different story. Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele both had some glorious opportunities that didn't go in. But then it was the Minnesota Wild doing what they love to do, and that is play with the lead and frustrate the hell out of their opposition. And here we are in the first 3-game losing streak of the year, awaiting the Vancouver Canucks. I mean, now what's your analysis of this 3-game losing streak, and how worried should people in the Jet room and around be?
Yeah, well, I mean, my analysis is take a look at the lineup sheet and what did you think was going to happen? Like that looked, the forward group especially looked like a preseason game lineup. Like that's what we saw in October, on a Tuesday night against Columbus. So you know what I mean? Like they were in tough based on the amount of guys out of the lineup, and I don't know. I'm not really expecting a whole lot other than that right now. I mean, the Jets certainly need Hellebuck to be Vezina form at the moment to try and steal some points. And if he's just okay to good, it's probably not going to be good enough. So to be honest, man, I don't put any blame on the players for this bump in the road. I don't put much blame on the coaching staff. We talked about this, months before the season started, about how reinforcements needed to be brought in up front. And that was with a healthy team. Never mind, what is it, 6 guys up front out of the I've lost track at this point. I think there's legitimate reason to be concerned right now. And I mean, in a good sense, it's not because you don't have the guys up front and the coaching staff isn't doing their, I don't think it's anything like that. It's just, they're decimated and they need help. And even when they're healthy, they need help up front. And it's up to management here. This was something I thought that should have been done, months ago during the season. Even when they had that first mini rash of injuries with Ehlers going out and then Appleton shortly thereafter, it was like, why don't you go ahead and be aggressive here, get ahead of it while the team is playing good, and nobody has to try to hold a desperate management group out to water and, grab a couple of extra assets in the process. And now we're at where we are, where, you touched on it, like standings tightened up really, really quickly here. And look, I don't know. Do you want to try and wait this out 2-3 weeks and then 3 losses turn into 6 or 7, and some of the teams below the Jets pick up a few wins in a row? It is a pretty.
Well, here's the question. Here's the question, and I mean, it's a very valid point that you're making, and I mean, I think there's points to be made on both sides of it. But with the way the Winnipeg Jets were playing before and the results they were getting with the production from those players that were in the lineup, do you make trades or make moves right now, essentially to fill holes for 2 or 3 weeks, knowing that Nikolai Ehlers is coming back and Blake Wheeler and all those guys you assume are going to be back, and then where are you at? And obviously there's a cost to doing business too. I mean, it's not like these guys are just sitting there. You don't have to give anything up. I mean, I was mentioning right at the top, reading some of the scouts reports of this World Junior and projecting it to this year's draft. I mean, the easiest thing the Winnipeg Jets could do right now is, trade your first round pick and get some help in there. Is that smart for a team in their position right now, especially considering what is to come with the contracts coming up for many key players in the next 2 seasons right now? I mean, me personally, I hope the Jets don't trade that pick at any point. I mean, unless we go in and they're a clear number 1 team, in the Central Division, and it is this time right now. It's not an easy spot, but I think to the credit of the players and the coaching staff, we're having this conversation now. We could have easily been having this, and we've been talking about things about it a month ago.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that when even close to healthy, or even when not healthy, the guys that have been getting the opportunity from the organization have been doing a pretty good job. But then you get to this point. You're picking up guys off waivers and throwing them in the top 6. I mean, we got Christian Reichel that's come up right now. I mean, you could make an argument that based on players that have been on waivers, and I think Murat made this point today, you got 5 or 6 of the guys that'll be starting tonight that are replacement level, if you will, because they could have been replaced, or in Kuhlman's case, was a guy that got off of it. So I mean, it's a real difficult situation, a catch-22. But I think at some point there is a worry of maybe overreacting, spending too much to plug a hole right now, knowing that if you can just survive this next little while, you're going to be getting some big-time players that can come back and make a big difference in the lineup.
Yeah, we're kind of at the point now where I get where you're coming from, where it's like, look, we waited this long. Why don't we just wait another week or two and away we go here? But the other thing to that is, I mean, there's no guarantee these guys come back and, oh, yeah, we're 100% healthy, ready to go. No more injuries the rest of the year, right? Like,
that's not happening.
Well, hey, look, man, I follow a couple teams, and one of them wears orange and black, and I know day to day turns into, their career is now over pretty quickly. So I'm a little bit skeptical when it comes to players returning from injury and then able to perform at a high level right after that. So I don't know. I'm still of the mindset that this team, again, even when healthy, needs some reinforcements to compete with some of the powerhouses in the Western Conference here. And I don't think you have to give up the house to get somebody. Like I'm with you. I don't know if there's somebody out there that I'd give up a first round pick for. That to me is a discussion for the trade deadline, giving up a major asset.
Let me ask
like
you that. So put the GM hat on for a minute. If there are players that, you would love them to act now on, what would be on the table? I mean, what are reasonable assets that, the Jets could part with right now to make their current situation better without not, really putting them at a deficit later on or at a time where they need some young players?
Yeah, I think a mid-round pick or one of your defensive prospects. I think that's fair. And I think that, look, it's not going to get you a top-line guy or anything like that, but a middle 6 forward is so desperately needed right now.
Yeah.
And I think one of those assets would be able to get it done there. So, and that's kind of walking that fine line of, let's not push all our chips in right now and go crazy because we're desperate for some bodies here. But it also is a little bit of, the guys need help. Like they need somebody to come in that can be a legitimate contributor, because again, I don't blame the players for some of the struggles right now, but I mean, you picked up Carson Kuhlman off waivers, and 24 hours later, he's playing on the top line with Mark Scheifele. Like there's got to be there's a number of teams that are so far down in the basement that they're not even contemplating, having valuable contributors in the lineup this year. I'm sure the Jets could raid a handful of those teams and say, look, we need a bit of help right now. I don't know, a third round pick, maybe take your pick of 3 of our B, C level defensive prospects, and is there something that we can work out here? I think that's the best way to go right now. And then if you want to go maybe a little more big game hunting towards the deadline, then you could do something towards then. I just think at this point, the waiting invites a lot of danger and a lot of risk because, look, even when the Jets are fully healthy, eventually, whenever that does happen, it could be tough because it seems like Minnesota's rounded into form. Nashville started to play a little bit better. And to see, the Edmonton McDavids with 40 points, just a couple points back, and the last team below the playoff, like that terrifies me. To have that team potentially being the one that you have to hold down, that's a scary proposition. So I'd look to be a little bit proactive here, and let's bring somebody in to help the boys out now.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly with you that, you're not holding against the guys that are in the lineup right now. There's been no shortage of effort. In fact, the efforts that they gave in, even in the third period against Washington, I was blown away at the fight that they showed. And listen, you're not going to win all these games, and there'll be some games that, you lose that you deserve to win. I'm not saying that was that situation there. But the way they played at the end of that stretch in Boston and Washington, starting the week 4 games earlier against Vancouver Canucks, they're certainly leaving it all out there right now. And the one positive is that this schedule is going to lighten up a little bit as we get into January. And that's why a game like tonight, Brandon, is so important. A 4-game losing streak going into Edmonton on New Year's Eve, that's the sort of period that the Jets have avoided so far, and that's why they've had the lofty spot in the division right now. This is also a team that they embarrassed at home less than 2 weeks ago, or right around 2 weeks ago. And I already saw they have mentioned that they remember that game, and they've played quite well, and they've been scoring a lot of goals lately. To me, this is a Connor Hellebuyck game right now, and you sort of mentioned it. I didn't like the 2 goals that went in early on. I thought that he, steeled himself and played very well the rest of the way. Certainly nothing he could do on that tap in on the 2-on-1 from Zuccarello to Gaudreau. But listen, we talk about your best players stepping up and being your best players. I have no doubt saying that Connor Hellebuyck is the best player on this hockey club, and man, a big performance from 37 tonight in front of the home fans is exactly what this team needs. Because the Vancouver Canucks, for all of their flaws, the one thing they can do is score goals, and they've been doing a lot of it lately.
Yeah, and we'll see too with the lineup change. I do like having Dubois and Scheifele on separate lot, just because trying to jam pack all your offense onto one line, it's a full risk, right? Like if they pop off, you're okay. If they don't, you're probably not scoring 2 goals on the night. So I do like that move right off the bat too, and it allows you to better deal with a Canucks team. They're surprisingly good up front. It's a bizarre team. I guess that's what happens when you have a borderline AHL blue line and Quinn Hughes out there, right? They need a little bit of support. But yeah, the Canucks are 3 straight dubs for them. This does feel like a Helly game, and it's unfair to ask because he's carried this team for half a decade already at this point. But that's really all they have in their bag right now. There's that, and I think realistically, the power play that kind of lies their best chance at winning games until they get a little bit closer back to full health. You could have Josh Morrissey continue his magic from the back end there, but if we don't see Hellebuyck with a 930 by the end of this one, it's probably going to be a struggle for this team to score 3 goals in this game, right? It's just going to be difficult with the group that they have out there in the bottom 6 to expect this club, I think at least realistically, to pot in a handful of goals here in this one. So it might have to be that cagey affair where you try and grind and muck away a 2-1 victory. And then whatever happens in Edmonton happens, right? You feel a little bit better there. It's just, I'm with you, right? That's the scary part, is dropping this one 4 straight, no help is coming. And then the McDavids, come to town on New Year's Eve there. And then things can start to get a little bit dicey. So yeah, Hellebuyck is going to be leaned on very, very heavily over the next bit, specifically tonight, though.
Well, and you have that 1-game rodeo to Edmonton, and then you come back. And the amount of games and how many days is better, but the Calgary Flames have been playing well. I mean, they lost to Edmonton the other day. They outshot them 47-22. They did a similar number last night on the Kraken. And then you've got the Tampa Bay Lightning and those same Edmonton Oilers coming to town. So, you'd love to get a few reinforcements right now, but, really fairly or unfairly, this is going to be on the shoulders of the Jets' top dogs. Listen, we've talked all about injuries. I was thinking about this morning. Can you imagine if one of Dubois, Scheifele, Connor, or Hellebuck were out at some point? I mean, then we're probably having a completely different conversation, because all four of those players have played so well and for the most part so consistently for the over the course of this season. All that being said, Brandon, I've loved Kevin Stenlund and what he's done so far, and I think he's been an impact player right now. I'd love to see more from Gustafsson and his line. That's something that really hasn't happened. And, I know we're kind of putting this on the goaltender and seeing if the guys in the top six can do it. But, man, like, if there ever was a time to get a little bit of contributions from that bottom six, which has been much better this year, I think we can all agree. But again, once you lose 5 guys from your starting forward group, that bottom six essentially becomes your top players at the American Hockey League level. It's a much bigger ask.
Yeah, it's brutal. Right? Like, I mean, how many Jets fans had watched Kevin Stenlund play before 2 weeks ago? You know what I mean? Like, I half of us,
unless you were paying attention to training camp or watching the Moose.
Yeah, that's the only thing there, right? Like, half of us thought it was Gustafsson looking good in his first game back. I was like, whoa, Stenlund, who the hell's this guy? But now he's being asked to essentially be a third line player for the team. So I hesitate to say they need more out of guys like that, because they are who they are, right? Like, you can hope for maybe an all-time performance from one of them in one game, but to expect consistent contributions over the course of even 5 or 6 games, it's just not fair to those guys. And so that's the danger of the situation the Jets find themselves in. And I think it's more so, to me, you need to put somewhat unrealistic burdens on Dubois, Connor, and Scheifele at this point and say, look, we need you. We need you to play at a 2-point per game pace over the next little while. Because other than that, I don't know realistically what you could hope for in terms of getting offense. Maybe hope for a little bit of punch from the back end, from anybody not named Josh Norrisy. That's probably your only other somewhat hopeful option there. But I would lean towards, you know what, Scheifele, Dubois, Connor, hope you guys like playing 25 minutes a night, because that's pretty much all we can do at this point.
It's funny you say 25 minutes a night, and I know we're sort of tongue-in-cheeking it. And I mean, I said the same thing. Oh, these guys are going to play 20. They played 22, and I can guarantee you, come the third period of this hockey game, if the Jets are down one or it's tight, you're going to see a ton of those players. The best possible thing that could happen for the Winnipeg Jets would be the opposite of what happened against Minnesota, to come out to a good start, to be able to play with a lead and to not be chasing the game, because
roll 4 lines.
Exactly. Let everyone feel a part of it, and not just lean on, okay, you guys good to get out there again? Throw them out there, because for obvious reasons. I mean, you can only squeeze so much out of those players that have given so much so far this season. What do you how intrigued are you with Adam Lowry moving to the wing to play with Mark Scheifele? It's it's interesting, and I know what Lowry does well. I mean, he wins battles, he can get the puck, and hopefully give Scheifele a little bit more opportunity to have the puck in the offensive zone. I mean, what were your thoughts when you saw that move from Bones?
I was surprised. that wouldn't have been my choice. I don't think it's a bad choice.
He's been a mainstay at center for so long.
Yeah, and he's been so damn good too, right? Like, he's been. There's been so many key contributors to the team this year, but he's gone completely under the radar as being a force as this team's third line center. So, like, I mean, I get it, right? You need to try to put as much talent as you have on your top 2 lines right now. I mean, I think I might have bumped Scheifele over to the wing and put Lowry down the middle. I think Scheifele's game would translate better to the wall than it would for Adam Lowry, and it wouldn't be.
Who takes more faceoffs? Who takes more faceoffs when they're on the ice together?
Yeah,
that'll be interesting. I would put my money on 17, considering what we've seen from Bones so far this season.
Yeah. I mean, look, hockey's a lot different than it was 10, 20 years ago too, right? Like it's a lot more interchangeable in terms of positions when you're out there on the ice. And we've seen the Jets, how well they play systematically, that they're okay with, what if one of them comes into the zone early, they're the centerman for that shift, the other guy pops off to the wing there. So I mean, look, I would probably have Lowry down the middle and Scheifele out there on the wing, but I can understand, just try to piece together somewhat of a competent top six here and hope those guys can get it done. But again, I think part of that goes back to Adam Lowry's time with Team Canada at the World Championships the previous year, where he got an opportunity. I think he played a little bit on the wing there for Team Canada as well. And he flourished. And I think that's continued over into this season. And we're just seeing a really, really confident, productive player for the team. And I'm not going to be surprised if he comes out there on the wing and gives this team a bit of a boost that they need right now.
Will we hear Mr. Brightside tonight in game 1,000? 1,000 for Sam Gagner.
I heard it on Tuesday at Adject Karaoke. We're hearing it Thursday night as well at Canada. Yeah, hell yeah, we're hearing Mr. Brightside. And I'll tell you what, that gets the biggest pop at Canada Life Center out of any of the songs I've heard so far this year.
Oh yeah, him and Dubois. Dubois' song. By the way, now that you bring this up, and we heard it on the weekend, what a goal against Minnesota by Dubois. You know, as that song goes, "Hey baby," and then it goes, "Ooh ah." Fans, this is the marching orders. It's not ooh ah, it's Dubois. Makes too much sense, right?
It's been there the whole time.
It's been there. It's just teeing it up. For somebody mentioned that to me at the intermission of a game a few weeks ago, and I'm like, God, I got to mention that on the show right now. So when Dubois does that, you know what to do. Brandon, nice to see that you went down to one of the old stomping grounds, the Red Room, Adject Karaoke in the Village. Good times. That's what the holidays is all about, getting the gang together and belting a few out.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a beauty of a time. I actually met some WST listeners. Mark was an absolute beauty. Said some way too nice things about me, which I appreciated. But it was a great time. It's a great time. Shout out Chauncey. He holds the fort down at Adject, so it's always a good time.
Yeah, no, there's some real beauties down there. That is always a fun thing to do around this time of year. Hey, enjoy a little time out at the lake. A very happy New Year to you. Thanks for everything this year, and can't wait to talk to you next week. Hopefully, talking a bit of a reversal of fortune about this club as we get into the new year.
Yeah, let's keep the vibes going into 2023. And yeah, thanks for having me on, man. We'll talk soon. All
the best. There it is, the host of Skates and Plates, Brandon Rewucki. Make sure you're checking out Skates and Plates wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Well, we mentioned what time of year it is. Of course, it is Boxing Week. And there are some amazing sales going on right now, including over at Royal Sports. Gang, if you got a little extra jingle in the jeans or maybe some money from Christmas, you're looking to get a great deal on something, check out these deals on right now at Royal Sports at 750 Pembina Highway. Everything Under Armour is 50% off. Dr. Martens boots, 50% off. Dickies apparel, 25% off. Snowshoes, 25% off. Volcom streetwear, Billabong streetwear, 25% off. And Vans t-shirts and Levi's jeans, 50% off. Over 1,000 Warrior hockey sticks on sale, up to 50% off as well. Make sure to get down to Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway, and check out their amazing Boxing Day deals this week running through New Year's Eve. And Andrew and the gang over at F Apparel have an amazing sale on right now throughout the week to get you ready for 2023, gentlemen. Thinking about upgrading the wardrobe at all? Well, check this out. All custom clothing, suits, dress shirts, and more, 20% off. Off-the-rack items, sweaters, polos, and whatnot, 30% off. And all accessories like ties, tie bars, socks, pocket squares, 50% off. Now, the sale runs in store, and that's always the best way to do it. Get down, see their great staff at 190 Smith Street downtown. But you can also order online. So why don't you check it out right now? F Apparel, that's EPHapparel.com. And hey, what a great night. If you're not going to the game, to settle up with the gang over at Boston Pizza. We got a big Jets game coming up tonight, and a bizarre Thursday nighter where the Dallas Cowboys are taking on the Tennessee Titans. Titans will be playing for the division next week. So Derrick Henry's sitting. Malik Willis, their starting quarterback, or second string, but now starter, is sitting as well. But hey, you'll be able to catch both at your favorite Boston Pizza, win great prizes for all NFL games and Winnipeg Jets hockey games, and check out all the treats on that new holiday menu, including the jalapeno popper dip and the Big Mac and Cheese burger as well. Boston Pizza. There's one near you. Pop down with the gang. And if you are staying home, you can always order online at bostonpizza.com. All right, let's get Mike McIntyre in here for a final visit of 2022. Mike, what's up? How was Christmas at the McIntyre household?
Christmas was great. Other than the little illness that I was fighting last week, which I managed to shake just in the nick of time. Unfortunately, one of the gifts that I gave to the rest of my family was the same stomach bug that I was battling. So, folks were a little under the weather, but we had a nice big family dinner and some good gifts under the tree. It's all about the family time, right? And the McIntyre clan is a big one here in Winnipeg. So I think we had 26 at our Christmas dinner. So yeah, it was great. Nice to get a few days kind of away from the rink, reset and refresh and recharge. And here we are right back at her.
Hey, I just got to give a quick shout out to Rick Benson in the chat. Rick, what's up? First time live from BC. Jets fan, never miss a show on YouTube. Go Jets, go. Rick, great to have you with us, and Happy New Year to you. And hopefully get a nice result tonight at the rink. Tell you what, let's start with Sam Gagner. I'm not sure whether we'll hear Mr. Brightside tonight. That certainly would be nice considering how much the Jets need a few other guys to pop in with goals. But what a wild journey he's had from a top pick at 18 years old coming into the National Hockey League, a very well-traveled player, and a guy that sort of found a nice home here in Winnipeg and the potential of really doing the one thing he hasn't done very much, and that's playing significant time in the playoffs, Mike.
Yeah, it's incredible that he's going to play game 1,000 tonight, but if you look, Huss, at playoff games played, he's been stuck on 11. That's not a lot of games. That's over 15 seasons, 11 playoff games. The takeaway from that is that Sam Gagner has been on a lot of bad hockey teams over the years. His sense of timing,
he got drafted by the Oilers.
He did.
In the middle of the decade of
darkness.
Decade of darkness, that's right.
Right. And then, then he was with the Red Wings kind of after their banner years and while they were undergoing a slow rebuild, and he's been on Columbus and Vancouver, of course, who's in town tonight. Fitting that game 1,000 does come against one of his former teams, and there's a bunch of guys on that Canucks roster that he would have played with. But you're right. I mean, this is a guy that had to reinvent himself. He also, wondered if he'd ever get to this stage because a few years back he got sent to the minors, and then a couple years later it happened again. And so he was a long way away from hitting 1,000 games in the NHL. He thought his NHL career might be done around the age of 28. But, credit to a guy. He's not the biggest guy. Of course, he'll never be confused for the fastest guy, but he does have a high hockey IQ. And he's a bit of a chameleon, if you will. He can adjust to his surroundings. And you look, here in Winnipeg, it's kind of the prototypical Sam Gagner story. He signs, a league minimum deal. As we heard yesterday from associate coach Scott Arneal, absolutely nothing was promised to Sam Gagner over the summer. They didn't tell him you've got this spot in the lineup. There was no guarantee he even makes this roster. But he did out of camp. And then as the injuries have started piling up, a guy like Sam Gagner has become an even more important piece. And look, just tonight, Haas, where he's going to play. He's back on what I would say is the number one line right now, beside Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kyle Connor. And we've seen him there at times this season, and we've seen him play well with those two players. So, Sam Gagner, just the 375th player, pretty exclusive company when you consider, how many players have come through the NHL in its history. The fact that he's just the 375th to get to the 1,000 game milestone. I also dare say, Huss, he's probably one of the youngest players to get there at the age of 33. And that's because, it's two things. He entered the league as an 18-year-old, which, as we know, doesn't happen a whole lot. but he's also stayed relatively healthy over the course of his career. And, a lot of, close to or completely full seasons under his belt. And I do hope we hear Mr. Brightside, because Huss, it's my favorite Jets goal song. I'm a big Killers fan. Seen them 3 times in concert, most recently down in Minneapolis in September. So I love hearing the Killers at any time. And for sure, it's my number one goal song for the Jets. So I suspect we might hear it. They're going to do a pregame ceremony for him tonight. They might play it anyways as part of that ceremony, but it would be nice to kind of hear it in the course of the game. And hey, he's playing with Connor and Dubois. He certainly got a chance, that's for sure.
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, anyone outside of the big boys up front that really are normally relied on to scoring could really help out right now, because as I was talking with Brandon, I mean, I think what the team has done has been really admirable. I mean, the way they played night in and night out, I give the coaching staff a ton of credit with, not allowing the obvious adversity that the team has been facing to become excuses. The expectations are still high. That being said, a stretch like this was almost bound to happen at some point with the lack of talent that's out of the lineup right now, the millions of dollars that are on the IR, and players that are frankly playing way above their heads where they would normally be in an NHL lineup. All that being said, no one's going to feel sorry for you, Mike, and they got to figure out a way to win a hockey game tonight. And you get the Vancouver Canucks coming in here that have had their fair share of ups and downs so far, but probably feeling pretty good about themselves considering the amount they've scored in these last 3 games on this winning streak. And the embarrassment that the Jets handed them at home, I'm sure, will be fresh in the minds of many people in that dressing room.
Well, and they didn't have Elias Pettersson or Brock Besser in their lineup that night. They will have them in the lineup tonight. I didn't realize, Huss, that the Vancouver Canucks, I mean, I knew they'd won 3 in a row. Bigger than that, though, these guys are road warriors. They've actually won 7 straight road games, and that's remarkable. You might say, okay, a team that's in the upper echelon of the NHL, a 7-game road winning streak, it would be impressive, but not surprising. The Vancouver Canucks are below the playoff line, and they've won 7 in a row on the road. That's really hard to do. You would think with that kind of streak, they'd be one of the best teams in the league. They're not, but they've certainly, righted the ship, it would appear. And as Rick Bowness said this morning, it's going to be a different looking Canucks team that the Jets face tonight than the one they saw a couple weeks ago. Of course, the Jets are a little bit different looking. I think actually since that game, the only one to go down has been Cole Perfetti. I think the other 6 guys on the injured list, Wheeler and Schmidt, had just gone down a few games earlier. So, the Jets were banged up then. They're even more banged up now with Cole Perfetti out of the lineup. And Huss, I've talked a lot about it. I'm sure you have as well. Like, the Jets built themselves up kind of a comfortable buffer here with the sizzling start to the season. But things can change in a hurry in the NHL. And 3 wins in 9 games. And I think almost, just as big as only getting 3 wins in 9 is that the 6 losses have all been in regulation. It's not like they've managed to, sneak out the so-called loser point a couple times. The buffer right now, that was once extremely comfortable, double digits, is 3 points. That's what's separating the Jets from the 9th place team in the Western Conference that are on the outside looking in right now. And lo and behold, that's the Edmonton Oilers, who they face next. And Vancouver is among the teams that's, getting closer in the rearview mirror. And Calgary is the other team right above Edmonton right now in that 8th and final spot. Who are Winnipeg's next 3 games against? Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary. These are 3 big hockey games coming up. And what happens between now and next Tuesday night, it's going to go quite a ways in kind of shaping where the Jets are, and I guess the level or not of panic that maybe is setting in with this group, because that that buffer has eroded, and there are teams now hot on their heels. You know, the Jets have kind of been the hunted for the longest period of time. What they don't want to happen is to fall back into that pack and become the hunters again, especially when, in the case of the Jets, the pack that you're hunting with is so greatly reduced right now. And I don't know if you heard the updates, Huss, from Rick Bowness this morning. I actually went through all 7 injured players with Rick Bowness. There were some interesting answers and insight from the coach, and I would say in some ways almost alarming on the status of a few guys. First of all, we learned today that Nate Schmidt, the guy who went down in mid-December and was believed to be 4 to 6 weeks away, he might be the first guy now back into the lineup. And I'm not sure that that's so much a great development for Nate Schmidt as it is a not so great development for the other injured players, some of whom are clearly not healing as quick as had hoped. Saku Manalainen, number 1, he was believed to be a week away. Now he's not. And even Nikolai Ehlers, who continues to skate, but you know, they're still talking 2+ weeks for Ehlers. It feels like they keep moving the goalposts a little further away on him.
And I mean, Mike, the Ehlers, like, with all due respect to Saku Manalainen, you'd love to have him back in the lineup. He's been a versatile player. He's been a good guy in that bottom 6. But I mean, right now up front, I mean, as long as Sam Gagner is, you know, playing there and Carson Kuhlman coming off waivers and basically staying in the top 6, I mean, you need to get Nikolai Ehlers back, and you need to get Blake Wheeler back, and to get back some semblance of a real top 6, including Cole Perfetti. And I mean, the Perfetti one's scary to me because, and I know it was nice. Agreed. They said, oh, we're thinking 7 to 10 days. But if you recall last year, the hit from Jamie Alexiak in that Seattle game that knocked him out essentially for the rest of the season, it was that upper body. It was right there on the shoulder. And I mean, that Brandon Carlo hit wasn't anything out of the norm, but you saw him dealing with that. And, you know, if you've already had an injury, and I'm not speculating, I mean, I don't know which shoulder it was with the other injury, whether it's the same one or not, but the bottom line is that you're really relying on a core group of players. And it's been incredible what they've done without Nikolai Ehlers, to be honest. I mean, I think he's such an important player on this team when he's at 100%. It's been admirable that they were able to progress through. But if you keep chipping away at the limited offensive firepower that you have amongst that forward group, you know, it really does put a ton of pressure on the likes of Mark Scheifele and Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kyle Connor, who have been full marks for their performance this year. But at what point does the general manager say, okay, we got to go and do something right now? And listen, if everyone is close to coming back, I sort of get the standing pat, you know, maintaining your cap space, maintaining your ability to maybe do something bigger at the deadline. But I'm not sure Kevin Cheveldayoff has that luxury in a couple weeks if the team doesn't put a few wins together.
I agree. The runway has shortened considerably, and it could disappear entirely in the next couple of weeks. And what you have to be careful here is that you don't let a great start completely slip away as you stand pat and do nothing. And then by the time you do get healthy, you waited too long. And now, you know, now you're in panic and scramble mode. So these are all things that no doubt Kevin Cheveldayoff is probably tossing and turning at night about. What I find remarkable is this, Huss, and you followed the team as long as anyone. Can you remember the last time the Winnipeg Jets had 29 players counting against the active salary cap? That's where they stand today. The lineup the Jets will field tonight is only like a $55 million roster, but it's actually almost an $81 million capped out roster because the 7 injured players are still counting against the cap in addition to the 22 active players on the roster. Right now, with Christian Reichel coming up this morning, the Jets have 1 extra forward, 1 extra D. Reichel will be the forward scratch tonight. Kyle Capobianco, the defense scratch as Ville Heinola comes back in. So they have 2 extra players, but they have no cap space right now. In fact, if the Jets were to run into another situation where they'd have to call somebody up, they have no money left to do it. The only thing they could do at this point would be to activate LTIR, which is something that they haven't wanted to do. And I won't go into all the complexities of that, but in essence, the reason they haven't wanted to use long-term injured reserve is because it now eliminates the ability to accrue cap space, which they've been doing all year, which you can then sort of weaponize around the trade deadline. For example, if they wanted to take a run at Jonathan Toews and $10 million, you could potentially fit money like that in because you've accrued enough space throughout the year. If you use LTIR, the accruing stops. So right now, the Jets haven't used LTIR, but they may soon have no choice if they don't start getting injured guys back. And if injuries keep mounting, they're running out of options here. They really are. And it's I think not only Kevin Cheveldayoff is probably tossing and turning at night, Larry Simmons, the capologist, the assistant GM, who I've seen around the team a lot more these last couple weeks than usual. He's right there always. He was down there around the room this morning. Like, he's probably, got his work cut out for him right now, trying to crunch all the numbers and what they, possibly can do and can't do.
Yeah. Well, and the other somewhat ironic thing is, the Jets had themselves in a very good cap situation, but that's all been eroded game by game as you've added more players to. And I mean,
they have all this dead money right now.
Yeah. And I mean, you're not accruing very much when you've got 26 million just sitting there in the press box right now.
No, I think as of this morning, I looked on Cap Friendly. I think they're at 81, like 81.1 or something. They basically have like $400,000 left in salary, which wouldn't even cover a league minimum player coming up. So you're right. The accruing has all but stopped. And, it's got to be painful in addition to obviously what's happening on the ice over the last couple of weeks. But to have all this money that right now is just sitting there and, it's not providing you any value on the ice, but you're not even now really getting the benefits of that cap space sort of for down the road either. And, that's why they're going to have to make here a decision, especially if guys aren't coming back as quickly as they thought, if the losses continue to kind of mount, and then they decide, we got to do something here to try and save us from kind of swirling down the drain. But the options are very limited at this point in time, for sure.
Let me ask you this, because this is something I was kicking around with Brandon, who has, for many weeks has said he would have liked the team maybe to be a little bit aggressive and get ahead of this right now. And I guess there's pros and cons to it. Cap space, accruation, what you're able to do at the deadline that you might not be able to do now.
Right.
But it's quite obvious that there has been a need. Whether we're talking about right now, 2 weeks, what do you think the Jets are willing to part with right now? I mean, what would be on the table from a Winnipeg perspective to improve it? I mean, I'm watching this World Junior, and I think just considering where the team is with contracts ending in the next couple of years, I don't think, put it this way, if they're about to trade their first-round pick for next year's draft, I think you would see a team that is in first place well down the road. I don't see that. I mean, is it a Ville Heinola? Is it one of those players right now? I mean, is that what would get you the best asset coming back to help a team right now, not just at the deadline, but for the foreseeable future if you get them in earlier?
Yeah, I think if you're the Jets, really anything except your first round pick for this coming draft has got to be on the table. I would not risk trading at this point. Again, there's only a 3-point buffer on a playoff spot. Kevin Cheveldayoff would be run out of town if he moved the first round draft pick this year and then the Jets didn't make the playoffs, and that becomes a potential lottery pick and a chance, whether it's at Connor Bedard or, one of the other number of up to 5, perhaps, generational type foundation players that experts say this coming draft will yield. But I think if you're the Jets, you got to be aggressive here. And not just because you've seen the potential under Rick Bowness with what this group can do, even well, severely shorthanded. That's one factor for sure. Some confidence that, my goodness, if we had a bit better roster, imagine what these guys could accomplish. The other reason to me, Huss, that you have to be aggressive here, I don't need to remind fans, Connor Hellebuck, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Mark Scheifele are now 18 months away from being UFAs. You have no idea what the future holds for any of those 3 players and what that potentially means to the window here in Winnipeg. You have those 3 players under contract for this season and one more. In Dubois' case, they don't have him under contract for next season, but you at least, retain rights to that player. But I think that almost more than anything is a reason to be aggressive, because if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff and the future is very uncertain, and if 2 or 3 of those guys are gone by the summer of 2024, then this Jets team, we're talking about a very different direction. I think then at that point, you're into a rebuild more than anything at that point, because you've probably now moved those guys for future assets just to at least get something. And if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff, are you even around to oversee that? Like if you're Cheveldayoff, I think you almost have to view this as this could be the last kick at the can, certainly with the group that you have here. And he's seen enough already this year with what Rick Bowness and his staff have done to at least have some confidence that they could potentially accomplish some special things, but they desperately need help. And so you would try to build around that. And if I'm Cheveldayoff, basically I'm listening to everything short of my first round draft pick. And that would mean guys like Heinola, guys like Lucius, guys like McGroarty, guys like Lambert. I'm not saying you trade all those players, but if you're talking about the need to address a hole now, I think you have to keep your ears open to that.
Here's the thing, and I'll give a counterpoint on that. Because of everything that we've said and the uncertainty of what this roster is going to look like even next year, because, I mean, we can talk about a 2-year window. I think they need to get clarity, at least with 2 of the 3, Dubois and Hellebuck, in the offseason. I think because of that, and knowing that regardless, just with age, we are going to see a turnover in this roster, those 3 first-round picks, Rutger McGroarty, Brad Lambert, and Chaz Lucius, I mean, you project past next season into the following season, those could very well be key cornerstone players of a Jets 3.0, if you will, kind of moving on from Scheifele and Wheeler and those players for the first time. So, I mean, listen, I'm all about making the most of this season right now, but I really think that the first round pick this year and those 3 guys, like, it would have to be a massive trade for them, I think, to move off first round picks and first round talent, because when you're in Winnipeg and when you're in this market, those are the things that you have under team control. Those are the things that will be your future cornerstones. And I mean, to get some help in the middle 6 right now, to trade one of those players that are World Juniors right now, I'm not sure it really does help you in the big picture unless you're knocking on the door of winning a cup. And listen, as optimistic as I am about this club, I don't think that we're close to that right now.
No, although again, and life changes fast, they went into Boston last Thursday as the number 1 team in the Western Conference based on win percentage, despite all these injuries, right? So if you take the view that, hey, maybe the West is wide open this year, maybe there isn't, Colorado, which was so dominant last year. Talk about teams that are banged up. Colorado they're ravaged by injuries. If the thinking is the West is wide open, and if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff, and again, as great as all those future assets are, and like you say, potentially Jets 3.0, I guess the question is, if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff, are you even around when all those guys are now your next core And even if you're looking that far down the road as a GM, I mean, what does that say for guys like Kyle Connor, Nikolai Ehlers, Josh Morrissey, who in 2, 3, 4 years, they're that much closer to kind of being where Scheifele and Hellebuck are now. So I guess what I'm saying is at some point, you almost have to live in the moment. And if I'm the Jets, I've seen enough this year to be excited about the moment, and excited enough that I'm willing to be maybe more aggressive than I thought I would have been when the season began, especially with the state of the West. And, it looks like the best teams in the NHL this year are all out in the East. And so you worry about that. Hey, if we could just get to the Cup final, I mean, that in and of itself would be a win, and then anything can happen. But, a lot of things, as I say, I don't imagine Kevin Cheveldayoff and company are sleeping all that well these days, given all the things that are on the to-do list and on the mind.
Yeah, funny how 3 losses in a row in a week can change things. Hey, Mike. Hey, great. It's a perfect why not question of the day, folks. If you're Kevin Cheveldayoff and you're looking to make a move to get help now, would you consider? Well, we're not even going to talk about the first-round pick this year. We've already determined that's off the table. But are the Jets' last 3 first-rounders, Brad Lambert, Rutger McGroarty, Chaz Lucius, all playing at the World Juniors right now, would those assets be on the table for a move? Let us know in the chat. Why not question of the day? Brought to you by our friends at Not Autocorp. Mike, great stuff as always. Always love our chats, and I can't wait to do it again with you on a regular basis starting next week in 2023.
Absolutely, Huss. Never a dull moment around the hockey team and on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Have a great and happy New Year, prosperous New Year to you and all the listeners, and we'll catch you next week.
You got it. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the visitors coming up, as the Canucks have been winning some hockey games right now, and what a wild season they've had. Jeff Paterson's going to join us in just a minute. Before we do that, I have to give a big happy New Year and thanks to our great partners and friends over at Princess Auto. Proud sponsors of the Bombers, providing those incredible times at the Princess Auto tailgate zone before the games, and a massive sponsor of curling here in our province and coast to coast. And in addition to that, great sponsors of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Princess Auto, as you all know, is the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Visit them at one of 2 Winnipeg locations, Panet Road or Portage Avenue West, or shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. And of course, the gang at Culligan Water, another great local business that's been around for a long, long time, 65 plus years to be exact, serving Manitobans on all of their water needs. And Culligan really has everything that you and your family could possibly want. Water softeners, filters, bottled water coolers, whole home systems, drinking water systems, and citywide water delivery services, not to mention commercial and industrial water products and solutions as well. Whatever your water needs are, Culligan's there for you. 1200 Sargent Avenue. You can give them a call at 204-694-5180 or check them out online at drinkculligan.com. And hey, New Year's Eve is coming up. I know you're going to want to make that trip to the Manitoba Liquor Marts earlier than New Year's Eve itself to avoid crazy lines. When you do, check out everyone's favorite Canadian whiskey, the legendary Canadian Club. Of course, it's available there. And Bomber fans, don't forget those Jim Beam displays as well. For a limited time, when you buy a bottle of Jim Beam, a Winnipeg Blue Bomber collector glass featuring Zach Caleros, Adam Bighill, or Nick Dembski right now. Those are available at the 20 largest Manitoba liquor marts in the city. Big thanks to Canadian Club and our friends at Beam Suntory for their great support of WST. All right, looking forward to this because, for all of our Jets talk, there's been a lot of interesting conversations around the visitors tonight. And our old pal, Jeff Paterson, joins us. Nice to get the 1T Patersons back. What's up, J-Pat? How are you?
Absolutely, my brother, although not really my brother. But yeah, when you see on screen, it looks like you're right. There aren't enough 1T Patersons in the world. But hey, happy to be with you. Happy New Year to you and all of your viewers and your listeners. And we're all just trying to make our way in this new digital frontier.
No doubt. And speaking of that, by the way, of course, gang, Blake and Matt Sakaris that have been with us. Jeff, of course, a contributor there and does Rink-Wide Vancouver. You can check out the description in today's episode for links to both of those shows and to make sure to pop over and give them a view and a sub for all things Canucks. Jeff, this has been we've had an interesting season here in Winnipeg, dealing with a ton of injuries, a great start, huge questions going in about, what this team was going to be under Rick Bowness. And, so far so good despite this 3-game blip for the first time this season. Completely different story with the Vancouver Canucks, dating back to the drop of the puck on the season, at which point it could not have started any worse. And yet we've sort of seen a Canucks team pull itself up off the mat and at least get back into playing meaningful hockey games as we go into the new year.
Yeah, I've been at this a while, covered the Canucks for more than 2 decades here in Vancouver. Never seen a season like this one. And you're right. I mean, an 0-5-2 start, there was so much talk around this group that they had learned their lesson last year. It cost Travis Green and Nolan Baumgartner and Jim Benning and John Weisbrod and others their jobs. They had this organizational house cleaning in early December because 25 games into the season, they had 8 wins, and they were hell-bent on having a better start because they knew that games in October meant every bit as much as games in April. And then they threw up all over themselves, 0-5-2 out of the gate. They had a players-only meeting after the 4th game of the season. Bruce Boudreau was scratching veterans and sending messages a week into the season. One of the things that, and we'd never seen it, like the NHL's been around a while, never in NHL history had a team started the season with multiple goal leads in each of its first 3 games and ended up losing. And that's what happened. They were up 3-0 in Edmonton on opening night and lost 5-3 to the Oilers. Now, McDavid kind of got interested in that game halfway through, had a hat trick. But then they went to Philadelphia. They squandered a 2-goal lead there. They went to Washington, the same thing. And in fact, it happened in the 4th game of the season as well in Columbus. So they just kept shooting themselves in the foot. Like, it's not an easy league to get multiple goal leads. So they were doing some good things in games, but ultimately defense has been the biggest problem for this team. They cannot defend. They've given up 5 or more goals in 15 of the 34 games that they have played already this season. Now, they score in bunches too. So they've been wildly entertaining. There's been a 7-6 game. There's been an 8-5 game. There's been a couple of 6-5 games. Like, it feels like we're transporting back in time here. But here we are, not even halfway through this season, and there have just been these bizarre games. But through it all, they have managed. Since that 0-5-2 start, they are 16-10-1. So, those 27 games, their most recent 27 games, they're on a path, a projected pace that would put them around 100 points. Unfortunately, when you dig yourself the kind of hole that they did right out of the gates, you're playing catch up, and that's not an easy way to make hay in the National Hockey League.
I want to talk about some of the key players and the interesting stories, but I have to start with Bruce Boudreau because he was the toast of the town. It was Bruce there it is last year when he joined in, but in the offseason, it did seem like there was a bit of a disconnect maybe from the head coach to the direction of management. And then you have that horrible start, at which point, many people were speculating that Bruce might be gone soon. How has he handled this? And this is a guy with a lot of experience. I mean, what have you seen or heard from Bruce, and what are the buttons that he's pushed to get the Canucks, as we said, off the mat and back into the fight?
He was the right guy for the job when he took over from Travis Green last December. The team was just down in the dumps. Nothing was going right. And there were a lot of individuals that weren't feeling it. And Bruce is all about positivity. Anybody that spent a minute around this guy, that's just who he is. That's his nature. And I think in that moment, Elias Paterson wasn't playing well. Brock Besser certainly wasn't performing and producing the way that they needed him to. There were others. And Bruce came in and built these guys back up. And he's done that elsewhere in Minnesota, in Anaheim, in Washington as well. Like, that's been his MO, is take sort of distressed assets and find a way to, build them up, put a fresh coat of paint on them. And he did that perfectly. And they had that run last year, the 57 games that he coached. They made it interesting. Ultimately, they fell short of the playoffs. Part of that was Thatcher Demko got hurt late. Bo Horvat, who was on a goal-scoring binge and giving us a sense of what was to come, he got hurt late as well. And when you're playing catch-up, every game's a game 7, and ultimately it does take a toll. And so they missed the playoffs. And for him, starting from scratch, you would have thought, all right, he had all this success last year. He's going to pick up where he left off, but every year is a different year. And I mean, his future here and the fact that he's a lame duck and couldn't get an extension, even though, he had a winning record and did a lot of good things last year. Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin said, nope, you're signed to a 2-year deal. And even, it's come out since that Rutherford, when he took over, didn't even realize that Boudreau had the second year on his deal. So there's just a lot of things that haven't made sense necessarily around the coaching position. Rutherford has teed off a couple of times on his coach, lamented the lack of structure, and Rutherford's not wrong. We talked about all the goals that this team gives up. Now, some of that is Thatcher Demko, and who could have seen that coming? Got off to just a dreadful start, and then on December 1st, got hurt and is going to be out probably through the end of January. So they're running with Spencer Martin, who had all of 9 NHL starts to his credit prior to the season. He's tried to do what he can, but he's a backup. And I think they're asking too much to think that he can carry the load over the long haul here. So, a little structure in front of the goaltenders would probably help. And I'm just not sure that Bruce Boudreau and Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin are necessarily on the same page. Bruce is a guy that loves offense. It's the way he played. It's the way he coaches. But ultimately, in the National Hockey League and in most pro sports, it is defense that gets you where you want to go. So, defense has been an issue, but Bruce seems to be doing things his way. I don't believe he's going to be the coach next year. The question is, will he remain the coach through the duration of this season?
Well, it is absolutely fascinating, especially considering the way the team started and, to your point, the way they played and the results they've had over the last 27 games. And now the Canucks are, listen, I know they're 5 points back, and that's a long way, but they are in it right now. And a big part of that is the fact that they have been able to score goals, and they've been coming in bunches as of late. And 2 of the guys that you lean on the most for that are in very, very different situations. And I'm really interested in your perspective on the offseason into this year and the differences in JT Miller, who got the 8-year extension that doesn't kick in until next year, which I'm sure lit up the phone lines on Sakaris and Price and your inbox, and Captain Bo Horvat, who's having a monster season right now with 26 goals in 34 games, that does not have a contract and is a pending unrestricted free agent.
Yeah, and through the offseason and really going back to the trade deadline last year, it felt like JT Miller was going to be shipped out. And I think that they took some offers from around the National Hockey League. Ultimately, they weren't blown away. And then it got to the draft, and you may recall there were reports on the draft floor that the Canucks and the Islanders were, up to something, and that fell through. And out of nowhere on the Labor Day long weekend, it was the Friday, the long weekend. We were all sort of getting ready to go into long weekend mode, getting ready for, the hockey season that was to come. And then this news just drops out of nowhere. There'd been really no speculation that they had committed and hitched their wagon to JT Miller on this extension of 7 years and $8 million per. Now, he was coming off a 99-point season, but my hunch is that they just didn't like the offers. I think they felt that they could get better, and those trades never materialized. And so they felt, well, we better sign this guy. And he's been all right. Like he's a good player, but he also at times has looked like a guy who secured the bag and doesn't have to worry about, his financial future ever again in his life. He's not the stoutest player defensively, and that certainly has been apparent. Just a lot of turnovers, blind passes into the middle that have wound up in the back of their net and those types of things. But they've hitched their wagon to this guy. And now there are a lot of people in Vancouver that are wondering, did they make the wrong call here? Should the priority have been the captain? He's younger. He's 2 years younger than JT Miller, and he has exploded. 26 goals in 34 games. Just to give you a sense of the kind of season Bo Horvat's having, he scored 2 goals in each of the last 2 games. He's coming off back-to-back 4-point games. He has scored on 4 of the last 5 shots that he has taken. Like, he's just on this undeniable heater, the likes of which we haven't seen in Vancouver in a while. And I know, Austin Matthews scored 60. Like, Horvat's kind of on that pace, and it's just bizarre because he's been a good player. Now, he got on a nice run late last season and then broke a bone in his foot when he blocked a shot and missed the final 10 games. But he's got 37 goals in his last 50 games going back to late last season. So this isn't like he's just caught lightning in a bottle here. He gave us some glimpses of it, but just everything going his way right now, and to score on 4 of the last 5 shots is just a sort of an illustration that everything he touches, he's just got the Midas touch right now. And it's been fun to watch. Even his teammates laugh about it a little bit. I mean, they're enjoying the ride. But early in the season, he was scoring and the team wasn't winning. And I think that was eating away at him. That, he said, like, I'll trade all these goals for wins. Now he's scoring and he's contributing to victories. He had 3 points in the third period the other night in the final game before Christmas in Edmonton, and they won 5-2. Like, that's the captain stepping up in a 2-all tie and breaking that game wide open. And then the other night opens the scoring at home against San Jose and scored later in that game as well. So now he's scoring and contributing, and this team is winning, and they come into tonight on a 3-game win streak, and so they're feeling better about themselves. But the issue hasn't gone away at all. He's without a contract. He's a pending unrestricted free agent. We're about to hit January here, and some massive decisions have to be made, whether, every goal he scores, it kind of feels like the rate goes up 50 grand. And like, I didn't think coming into the season that Bo Horvat could command $8 million a season, but goal scorers get paid. And so, I don't know that he's necessarily an $8 million player. And if the goal scoring and the shooting percentage, if they revert to just his career norms, somebody's likely to be overpaying. And the question is it going to be the Canucks, or are they going to be able to carve out the cap space necessary? Because they're up against it. So they really don't have room. But could they get out from under Brock Besser? Could they move off Connor Garland? Could they possibly trade the former Jet Tyler Myers, who still has a season beyond this one and has a $5 million signing bonus due in the offseason? And there's no team that wants to take that on. So the Canucks would probably have to account for that and throw in a sweetener if there was a team that was willing to acquire Myers, or teams will wait until after this season and after that bonus is paid out. So look, this management group's been on the job for a year now. They haven't done anything in the way of shedding salary, but they've committed to Miller. They went out and they re-signed Brock Besser to a 3-year deal, and they added Ilya Mikheyev in the offseason. So, yeah, they score goals, but they didn't address the defense in any way whatsoever, and that has been the biggest weakness for a while here. And so through no fault of his own and through this incredible performance, it sort of feels like Bo Horvat is ultimately going to be the odd man out and is going to feel the squeeze. Now, he'll get paid somewhere, but he's only been a Canuck. He's the captain. He's raised his young family here in Vancouver. I think he wants to stay, but I'm just not sure that the dollar signs or the stars are going to line up for this one.
Well, and it's fascinating here in Winnipeg watching this play out, because if Kevin Cheveldayoff doesn't make moves and probably some tough decisions in the offseason along the likes of Connor Hellebuck, Mark Scheifele, Pierre-Luc Dubois, we could be in this exact same situation next year. And it does beg the question, how does this end? Like, I think, Jeff, I'm sure you would agree that the recent way the team has played and the fact that they've been winning games and they're back into the mix to challenge for a playoff spot, later on in the season, makes it far harder to move off of Bo Horvat. But if you don't do that and you miss the playoffs, or you're one and done quickly, man, you're missing a huge opportunity to replenish some important assets for a team that, really the future doesn't seem as much like it's right now, but a little bit down the road, especially considering what you've already given out to JT Miller.
Right. And the minute they trade Bo Horvat, they're going to spend the next 5 years trying to find the next Bo Horvat. And that's the downfall here. And really, you can track a lot of this back. Like, the new management group has been on the job for a year, but they inherited a mess. And let's be honest, Jim Benning's tenure in Vancouver was a disaster on a lot of levels on the ice, but certainly with a lot of the contracts. And, I go back to the Thanksgiving, and of course the schedule in the season was all tilted, but Thanksgiving weekend after the bubble. So the Canucks had the flash in the bubble where they beat Minnesota, they beat St. Louis, and they pushed Vegas. And there was some excitement in this market. So that was the first time that they had played playoff hockey since 2015. And then that Thanksgiving weekend was free agency that year, and Chris Tanev and Jacob Markstrom and Tyler Toffoli and Troy Stetcher all walked out the door with nothing to show for any of those guys. And you look at Toffoli and what he signed for ultimately in Montreal, and the Canucks could have afforded to make that deal. They didn't. And then in the same breath, they go out and they give up a first rounder in Dylan Guenther, who's doing great things now at the World Juniors and had a fine run in junior in Edmonton. And OEL, they took on that contract that expires, in the year 3000 or something. But they also they wanted Connor Garland, but they basically had Connor Garland in Tyler Toffoli. And if they had just committed to Toffoli, who I think and has a longer track record, certainly, of scoring in the NHL, they had that player. They wouldn't have had to part with the assets they did. And ultimately, if there had been a little bit more patience, like the Canucks wanted to shed those contracts of the last year of Louis Eriksson and Jay Beagle and Antoine Roussel. They did all of that, and they still missed the playoffs. And so, in hindsight, they should have bit the bullet, just toughed it out for one more year. They would have freed up $15 million in cap space. They wouldn't have had the commitment that they do to Oliver Ekman-Larsson. And, they've got Connor Garland at $5 million per for 3 years beyond this one. He had a decent first season last year, but he's had a tough go of it in the first half this year. So, it's asset allocation has been such a problem for this organization for the last little while. And that brings us right back to modern day with Bo Horvat that, you just can't keep everybody. There's not enough money to go around in a flat cap world. And the other thing is this team's done nothing. And so to continue to, just commit to the same guys over and over and over, really, what are we doing here? Ultimately is the question that gets asked an awful lot. And we haven't even talked about Elias Paterson, who has just been lights out good this year, is basically on pace for a 100-point season. And these are his prime years. He's 24. You want to be you got to surround your best players. Quinn Hughes, a point-a-game guy as a defenseman, the type of defenseman that the Canucks have never had in 50 years. You've got Paterson and you've got Hughes, and they're both having these incredible offensive seasons. And the question is, what's best case scenario? That they squeeze into a wild card spot and probably get eliminated in the first round of the playoffs? And how does that set you up for the years to come? And so there are a lot of people that would rather see some really difficult decisions be made about this team to truly set a course and a direction, because they've been rudderless basically for the last decade. The previous decade was great. It led them to Game 7 of a Stanley Cup final, produced and provided a ton of excitement in the market. But since then, it's been a dark decade. And it just kind of feels like they're spinning their wheels without really difficult decisions being made to build around the star players, to put a course of action in place that's going to make them a legitimate contender, and not having this every year about, can they make the playoffs and can they just bump ahead of the playoff bar? People have seen that, and nobody gets excited in this market. They want to see sustained success, but they want to see a course of action that gives them belief that management has both hands firmly on the wheel.
Well, and just to bring it back to tonight's game, but also the bigger story that we're talking about. I mean, Bo Horvat's your second leading scorer, and he's an unrestricted free agent. The Canucks' third leading scorer is also an unrestricted free agent, and that is Kuzmenko, who's making less than $1 million right now. Fill us in on the type of player he is. I'm sure there's many Jet fans or people watching that haven't seen him yet, the impact that he's made, and how that may complicate their situation going forward, knowing what he's done on the ice for this club so far this season.
He's been everything that they could have hoped. And I'll admit, I was skeptical. We've seen guys put up numbers in the KHL, but how does it translate to a smaller rink and a new culture, and you're a long way from home? He's 26, so he's not young, but they did a nice job. They surrounded him. They brought in Ilya Mikheyev, represented by Dan Milstein, both of them. So, there was a relationship, and Mikheyev served as a bit of a buffer there and a translator, and they had Vasily Podkolzin in the first rounder from a couple of years ago, although he's down in the minors right now. But Kuzmenko has come in, and from the first day of training camp, you could just see the skill. His shot popped. It was different than most of the guys, and most of the guys at this level can fire the puck, but you could just get a sense that there was something there, and he had a big preseason and hit the ground running. And for the most part, has played with Elias Paterson, so they put him in a position to succeed right away. The one area that surprised me, I suppose, is how successful he's been as a net front guy on the power play, and he has scored a bunch of goals. He's got 14 on the season. I would say 5 or 6 of them have come just tap-ins on the doorstep, where the Canucks have zipped it around to the power play, and they have a top 10 power play in the National Hockey League. And Kuzmenko, one of his real gifts is just finding that soft spot. But it's not easy to go to the front of the net and to stay there. You pay a price generally, and we think of, Todd Bertuzzi's of the world as sort of a net front, your prototypical net front guy on the power play, but the game is changing. And Kuzmenko doesn't, his timing and a sense of anticipation of knowing when to get there and just put a stick on the ice, and has scored a ton of those sort of tap-ins, whether it's Miller from the left side or Paterson from the right side, finding him and feeding him. He scored a few with the big shot, had a hat trick against Anaheim. He scored pulled the trigger on a breakaway in overtime in San Jose a couple of weeks ago as well. So he's dangerous. He's full of skill. He's a playmaker, but he's also got that finishing ability. And so 30 points in the 33 games that he has played. He missed one because he was a healthy scratch, game 15 or 16 in Boston, the tail end of an Eastern road trip. And his play was tailing off a little bit. I'm not sure it warranted a healthy scratch, but I think it was a bit of a message. And look, they've sent a ton of messages to a bunch of different guys already this season. Brock Besser was almost a healthy scratch. Connor Garland has been a healthy scratch. And I think Bruce Boudreau, just trying to push buttons and make sure that complacency wasn't setting in with any of these guys. Whatever the case, they sat him down for a night. He bounced back. He responded, and he's been good for them. But you're right. His future is uncertain, too. Like goal scorers get paid. And his buddy Mikheyev getting close to $5 million with a 4-year deal. My sense is that that's kind of the contract that he's going to be looking for on his next deal. And again, you don't have money for Horvat. Do you have money for Kuzmenko? Is there a way that you could, again, free up and move off other players to create room for these guys? Whatever the case, the one thing about Kuzmenko, he has been a fan favorite here. This guy he is loving life, massive personality, huge $1 million smile. It'll be a $5 million smile if he keeps scoring. But he's just, he's one of those guys. Like he looks like he is loving every day in the National Hockey League. He's probably thinking he should have come over here a little bit sooner. But he's been a big part of why the Canucks score goals. They've got 5 guys who have a dozen or more goals already this season, led by Horvat. But you've got Miller, you've got Paterson, you've got Kuzmenko, and then Mikheyev scored the other night and has scored in back-to-back games now. And he's at a dozen on the season. So, yeah, offense, no issues. Defense, and the worst penalty killing in the National Hockey League, and some of that goes hand in hand. But as much fun as it's been to watch them score goals, they keep shooting themselves in the foot on too many nights, and especially with a backup goaltender. They're never out of games because when they're down, they score, but when they're up, they give up too much. And so who knows what tonight brings. They think they're playing a little bit better. They come in on a 3-game win streak, and miraculously, with all of the things that we've talked about in this first half of the season, they arrive in Winnipeg tonight on a 7-game road win streak. So you figure that out. We can't, but they're going to try to make it 8 in a row if they can beat the Jets tonight.
2 very interesting teams facing off tonight. And of course, it wasn't even 2 weeks ago that, the Jets really thumped the Canucks, albeit without Paterson and Besser. And be very interesting to see how they bounce back and what we get from this Jets team that's so decimated going into tonight, not unlike many other teams in the NHL. Jeff, this was amazing. Thanks so much. All the best to you and the Go Goat fam heading into the new year. And shout out to 1T Patersons everywhere. Thanks for doing this.
Well, let's do it again soon. Hey, the Canucks are back they're there on a Sunday, so that probably doesn't work, but they're back there on January the 8th. So they're going to
Remis will be texting you and we'll do something that week leading in because this was a lot of fun. And listen, there's enough interesting storylines for both of these teams to crank out plenty more content. We'll do it as well. Thanks so much for your time and enjoy the one tonight.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you and all your viewers.
Good stuff. There's Jeff Paterson from Vancouver, Rink Wide Vancouver, and of course, Sakaris Price, one of the best. And that was an awesome segment. Some great information on the visitors that are coming up tonight. All right. Marbles registration is open, gang. You know what to do. !Marbles, our final qualifying race before tomorrow's grand finale of the Tournament of Champions, where our qualifiers will be playing for a pair of Blue Bomber season tickets courtesy of Consolidated Supply. Just before we get Remo back in here and get to the Coolbet lines, do have to thank our friends at the Nick and Nicky DQ group for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. As I mentioned, I practiced what I preached. I was in charge of dessert for Christmas dinner. What better treat that everyone always is guaranteed to love than a DQ ice cream cake? And I got the regular one. I am quite intrigued about the Blizzard cakes. That's going to be on the list, although we might, like Rewucki, we might have to wait till February maybe to dive into a Blizzard cake after some progress is made on all our New Year's resolutions. Bottom line, though, is 12 months a year, Nick and Nicky DQ are there for you. 4 locations, the DQ in Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, DQ St. Anne's. Amazing stack burgers, fries, chicken fingers, all the hot treats, and the best ice cream treats around as well. Take home cakes and more, milkshakes, blizzards. You know how it is at Nick and Nicky DQ. And big happy New Year to Nick and Nicky for their great support. And hey, Little Brown Jug's ready for New Year's. If you go to littlebrownjug.ca or check out their socials, they got a big New Year's Eve bash happening, which might be something that you might want to take in. But before the clock strikes 12, you're probably going to want to be stocking up on your favorites. And hey, let's face it, when it comes to great local Winnipeg beers, Little Brown Jug is number one, led by the iconic 1919. But, as Little Brown Jug always does, brewing all of their own beer right there at the brewery and tap room in the Exchange. Some amazing seasonal beers as well. Best place to check those out for yourself is down on William Avenue in the Exchange. But if you can't get there, look for the Little Brown Jug display in any fine beer store around the city of Winnipeg and province of Manitoba. And next time you're out for a pop, make sure to ask if they've got 1919 on tap. Citywide delivery as well, littlebrownjug.ca. Go and check it out. All right, let's get Remis back in here. As I mentioned, coming up to 3 p.m., our final qualification is on right now. ! Marbles in the chat room. And man, that was a great conversation with Jeff. There really is a few teams more interesting on all sides of the Vancouver Canucks, Reem.
Yes, I find the Vancouver Canucks absolutely fascinating. And he said Jim Benning's tenure was a disaster. They completely mismanaged the salary cap and the roster, and that's why they are where they are. And someone said, why wouldn't they just sign Horvat? They don't have any money. They're up against the cap. They decided to sign JT Miller instead of trading them for assets. Their owner doesn't want to do a rebuild, which they've needed for years. The worst move to me was something aside from this Louis Eriksson, Jay Beagle, Antoine Roussel contracts, which were all terrible. Then just as those are about to expire and you're about to get some flexibility, you go and you trade those and a first-round pick for Connor Garland and Oliver Ekman-Larsson.
I did not realize until Jeff mentioned that the pick was Dylan Guenther.
Yes, and
he of the hat trick yesterday in the World Juniors.
And he said, you Connor Garland, basically Tyler Toffoli. Well, you had Tyler Toffoli, and you could have re-signed him, and now he's having a great season with Calgary, even though he did sign that original free agent deal with Montreal. So I think the Canucks, they've shot themselves
it's even
in the
worse.
foot.
They're playing against him in the division every time they go up against the Flames.
Yeah, and Markstrom too, who signed in Calgary with a great year last year, a bit of a down year this year. So I think Vancouver is fascinating. So I'm looking forward to that. I know a lot of people in chat house loved hearing from Jeff. They were curious if Jeff could beat Ken at the buffet table.
That would be a major. That would be like Joey Chestnut and Kobayashi going head to head.
So
epic buffet work.
I've been texting Jeff to come on the radio for probably this isn't the radio, but to come on sports talk shows for like 10 years. So I'm very appreciative of him. Always gets back promptly. Great appearance, just a different format. So
no, he was awesome, and they're doing great work out there in Vancouver. Really appreciate him jumping on, and we'll certainly catch up again with Jeff before these two teams meet again. Not too far away. What's the next game? Home game on the 8th, Sunday the 8th, an afternoon game for the Winnipeg Jets. All right, Remo. Okay, last call for marbles, everybody. Last call for marbles. If you just popped in a little bit late, ! Marbles, get it in. And Remo, before we get to the Coolbet lines, while you set things up, tonight it's Sam Gagner night. Now, I'm just trying to think, did the Jets win the games for both Wheeler's 1,000th and Paul Stastny's 1,000th?
I'm pretty sure they did. The Wheeler one was against Toronto last year, and I know I mixed them up yesterday. And the Stastny one, remember, it was at the end of the pandemic season before the Oilers playoff series, and it was just like a terrible year.
Oh, the team was playing like garbage at that time, and that was the one game that they won.
Yes, that was the one game they won. I think, was it against Vancouver?
So hopefully the good vibes from this 1,000th game for Sam Gagner can maybe be a little bit of a magic elixir to snap this 3-game losing streak. And Gagner, probably unlike most players playing in their 1,000th game, going to be riding shotgun with Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kyle Connor tonight. And he'll certainly have an opportunity to get Mr. Brightside playing with those guys on the thing. Do we have that Gagner clip?
Oh, sorry. I was too busy looking to see if they won and responding to everyone in chat. I don't know if you're following the chat, but like whenever we have, I think we talked like Leafs once with like Dave McCarthy. Someone came in chat and was like, "What is this, Leafs lunch?" And so now whenever we have like, I have like a person on from another team, someone in chat goes, "What is this, Canucks lunch?" And so Jeff comes in and literally like 10 people in chat, right? What is this, Canucks lunch? Like as that, and I'm just like, I started laughing. And now I mentioned calling Jeff on radio, and then everyone's reminding me in chat, radio is dead, Remo, and like everyone's writing that in chat. So sorry, I'm having too much fun interacting.
Listen, you bozos, sometimes when the Jets are playing an opponent, we might talk about the other team too. That, to quote Ken Wiebe, I don't often give these out, but that's a wake up. That is a definite wake up.
It's turned into a joke.
Okay, it's a meme. Okay,
it's turned into it's a term now. Yes, it's a meme now.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
We have inside joke memes on this show. They're being born. We got Oleg.
Is there any way I could distract you from these memes and people chatting at you to get a clip from the man of the night tonight, Sam Gagner, who will be playing his 1,000th game, and hopefully some good vibes for the big night. He will be celebrated before, and then it's time to get 2 points against a Vancouver Canuck team that's coming in hot. Here is Sam Gagner of the Winnipeg Jets.
I've had my ups and downs for sure. I think getting sent down by Vancouver and then the following year by Edmonton again, you question how your career is going to end up, but you just keep pushing along and keep trying to adjust to the modern game. It certainly feels good to be able to get there. I think I still feel good. I want to help this team win, and that's kind of my focus. So I wasn't sure kind of where the number was going to end up. You just want to keep playing, and certainly happy to get there.
All right, so there's Sam Gagner, who will be celebrated before the game tonight, and hopefully the team comes up with a big performance to get him a win in game 1,000, and maybe more importantly, win a few more games, stay where they're at right now, and get into the playoffs, and let him add to an incredibly low 11 playoff games in his career. And that's part of being drafted high to a bad team, being with Edmonton, and he has bounced around on some pretty poor teams over the course of his career. We can only hope that he'll get some more playoff games, maybe more than his entire career put together once we get to the spring. All right, marbles are closed. Remo, you want to get that taken care of? I will take a quick look at the Coolbet lines for tonight. Just before we get to the hockey, we do have a very bizarre Thursday night game. This is shaping up. It's got the feel of a Week 18 game, but in fact, it's Week 17. The Cowboys still have lots to play for. They are chasing the Eagles. I guess a win by the Eagles or a loss to the Cowboys clinches the number 1 seed for Philadelphia. But Dallas right now was a 9.5-point favorite. Then they were a 10-point favorite. This is the crazy thing. The Tennessee Titans, this game means nothing for them. But next week does. They will be playing the Jacksonville Jaguars in the final week of the season in a win and win the AFC South. Another terrible division right there with the NFC South this year. So the Titans have decided that they're not going to play Derrick Henry, and even their second-string quarterback, Malik Willis, who, to be honest, doesn't look anywhere near NFL caliber, is going to be sat out. And tonight, the guy that is going to be leading the Titans, I had not heard of his name until earlier today, but Joshua Dobbs. Joshua Dobbs, who was signed off the Lions practice squad 8 days ago, will be starting tonight in the National Football League. So you can imagine what that's done to the number. Cowboys, 13.5-point road favorites. Total of 40 right now. Cowboys minus 714 on the money line, and the Titans are plus 600. As far as the NHL goes today, had a pretty busy night in the league. A very busy night, in fact. I'm sure Remo will be cranking out a DraftKings contest.
Yes.
You got Detroit at Buffalo Detroit with that big win last night. Came back from being down 4-0 after the first. And who was it that scored the OT winner that did the gritty last night? I believe that's the first ever gritty in an NHL game.
What the hell is the gritty? Like I see like Mike Gesicki doing it. I don't even know what it is. You go like this, like
it's just like a dance.
I know it's
Have you
a
watched
dance.
the Vikings game this year? Because Justin Jefferson does it every time he gets into the end zone. He does that all the time.
I don't know the origins of it, but I did see a guy doing it on the ice. I was so mad. I had Casey DeSmith in DraftKings. I'm like, sweet, he's gonna get a shutout. This is awesome. And then it's like, 4-1. All right, that's fine. A goal. Oh, they're up 4-2. I'm like, it's fine. 2 goals against, not bad. Next thing I know, I hop in the shower. I come out. Oh, it's 4-4. What the hell happened? I saw Detroit was pressing all the shots.
It was Jake Wallman with his second, assisted by former Jet Andrew Kopp.
Crazy. So
for the winner, and yes, he did the little gritty dance. It's finally come to the National Football League. Wasn't that a moment last night? Other games tonight. Man, if the Panthers don't beat the Canadians at home tonight as minus 350 favorites coming out of the break, that could be bad news for our old friend Pomo. A lot of pressure in Florida right now to get this right coming out of the break. They struggled heading into it, and they've been one of the most disappointing teams in the league so far this season. That being said, they're a massive favorite tonight, minus 350. Good game. Rangers, Lightning in Tampa. Lightning a minus 127 home fave. Caps minus 172 favorites at home to Ottawa. Islanders big favorites against the Blue Jackets minus 249. Big Central Division matchup between the Dallas Stars and the Minnesota Wild. The Stars practiced outdoors yesterday, getting back to the roots. Tonight they'll be at the XL Energy Center. Minnesota slight favorite minus 117 for the home team, minus 101 for Dallas. Another Central Division game, Blues, big, minus 282 favorites against the struggling Blackhawks. And then, as we mentioned, the Winnipeg Jets and the Vancouver Canucks. Jets minus 147 faves at home. Vancouver plus 125. Toronto, a huge minus 307 favorite in Arizona. Avalanche hanging in there as they deal with injuries as well. Minus 146 faves against the Kings. And the final game tonight, minus 162 favorites, the Sharks at home against the Philadelphia Flyers. Just before we finish up, let's take a quick look at these Jets numbers for tonight. To score a goal, Adam Lowry plus 330. He'll be playing with Mark Scheifele. Mark Scheifele's plus 155. Kyle Connors plus 135. Pierre-Luc Dubois plus 158. Then you get to the Canucks. Bo Horvat plus 160. JT Miller plus 215. Elias Pettersson plus 163. But what is interesting, the number I wanted to see, Sam Gagner, plus 365. Will there be a Mr. Brightside playing tonight? We will find out. But if you want to jump on it at Coolbet, Sam Gagner plus 365. Point props, goal, assist props, all there for you, along with all the games. And tomorrow, by the way, for you lock shoppers, noon our time, I will be doing a edition of the Lock Shop, and I think we're going to host it over on the Coolbet Canada page as Dusty finishing up his time in Switzerland calling the Spengler. But we've tweeted out the picks for today at Lock Shop Bets, and tomorrow we'll have the big Week 17 extravaganza with the best bets, the partner parlay, and all that fun stuff heading into the weekend. But listen, we'll get to that tomorrow. Right now, we have some business to take care of, Remo, and that is our final qualifying marble race of the Tournament of Champions.
Yeah, I'm enjoying a lot of the comments. I just want to say, if you are in here, make sure you're hitting the like button and subscribe. We're trying to get, I think MC, Stormy, and Phyllis are keeping track, like 14 straight shows or something with 200 likes. Liking the channel, tells YouTube, hey, we got great content, and it's more likely to recommend it. More people helps us grow and get some more subs. We're trying to get to, we're close to like 86 or 8,700, I think. Well, I want to get to 10K at some point. So if everyone hits the subscribe button, and if you are subscribed already, hit the notification button, and I'll tell you, when we put out stuff.
Can we get to 9K subs by our second anniversary? That is the question. March
How
8th.
many do we have? And there's
We're
like 3 months.
8.56.
And there's
the challenge, folks. Tell a friend, grab their phone, show them how YouTube works. and tell them to go and press that red button. But it literally is the easiest thing that you can do. Just hit the like, hit that thumbs up. Helps us out big time, and we really do appreciate it.
I'm gonna have to start pumping out some more videos if we want to get there. Yeah, so we'll have idea. We'll have to do that. We did get some comments about Gord Miller coming on yesterday, January 9, Bisons versus Ukraine. So if you missed it, check that out yesterday. We tweeted a link. I did have a couple things, as I load these up. We never touched on, well, first of all, you mentioned the Rangers. You never mentioned Alexei Lafreniere, healthy scratch, former first overall pick.
Really?
Yeah, healthy scratched tonight. So it's been, I don't know, he hasn't really been given, power play one time. He's kind of played a bit with Panarin, but they're not happy with him. And it's like 2 back-to-back picks. Kako was 2 and Lafreniere number 1, and the Rangers were a pretty damn good team last year, carried by Shesterkin. But those, you have pick 1 and 2 in back-to-back years, they're not panning out. So I don't know if it's a Rangers thing or they made the wrong picks, but tough
Lafreniere was a clear-cut number 1. I mean, remember how
there was hype leading up years
huge
before
hype for him.
Yeah,
but listen, they're 18-year-old kids, much like. Listen, Connor Bedard looks like about as much of a sure thing as we've seen in the last 10, 20 years, really, from Sidney Crosby and Ovi. But it is an inexact science. And the teams that draft well do well. And the Rangers, listen, they had a real benefit from getting that second overall pick and first-round pick. But it happens all the time. Hell, the Chiefs went 1-15 in 1 year, and they picked Eric Fisher, a tackle, for an offensive lineman because there wasn't any quarterbacks in the draft. So there is an element of luck to it as well. You want to get into this Leafs getting fined $100,000 for the early flight?
I love this story, because it has to do with schedule and time zones,
CBA,
and back to back, and circumventing the CBA. So it came out yesterday that the Toronto Maple Leafs fined $100,000 for leaving early or leaving during the mandated break time. They're supposed to be off until the 26th, and you leave on the 27th for a game on the 27th. And they got fined $100,000. So what happened? Elliot Friedman said they were supposed to fly on the 27th just after midnight to get around that. However, the players like, no, we don't want to do a midnight to 2 a.m. flight. So they left an hour and a half before the deadline, 10:30 Eastern. And so they were not, because it was a 90-minute to 2-hour flight, they thought it would be better to go a bit earlier, and the players all agreed. And they're getting fined to the $100,000. And I'm sure to the Leafs, $100,000 is nothing, and they're more than happy to pay the fine. And they won that game in overtime. And it was kind of weird, because they have to fly on the 27th, but all the games are on the 27th. And same day travel, it's going to throw off everyone's routine. In fact, Rachel Dory tweeted out that every road team that had a longer than 75-minute flight on the 27th lost. The one team that did win was Minnesota. Well, how long is a flight from Minnesota to Winnipeg? Like an hour?
If that.
So I'm sure that's 70. Yeah. So it seems like the Leafs, big-brained the rest of the league, and we're happy to pay $100,000 in exchange for 2 standings points.
Well, listen, do we have 2 different sets of rules?
Yes.
One for the Leafs and one for everybody else?
Yeah.
Well, that's bullshit.
No, it's a salary. You got to figure out how to use that extra revenue. Good for them. They got fined $100,000. Get mad at the NHL for having shitty penalties. Like when they fine a player for $5,000 for a bad hit.
This is the CBA. This is collectively bargained. That's what CB stands for. Collective bargaining agreement.
And the players collectively said, I don't want to fly at midnight to 2 a.m. I'd rather fly at 10:30. And they all agreed. What's the problem? Good.
First round pick.
We'll pay the fine.
Dock him a first round pick. It won't happen again.
Probably, but that's not what it is. It said 100. They said it was 100,000.
That's the equivalent. That's the equivalent of the $2,500 fine to a player.
I agree. So you're getting mad at the wrong person, Hustler. I agree with you. So look, they said this is what the penalty is. We're okay.
I'm getting mad at you for supporting the Leafs circumventing.
Is it because
the
it's
CBA.
the Leafs? Is it because it's the Leafs, or
because I probably would be less mad if it was the Sharks or somebody else, to be honest.
Good for I think good for them. They said, look, we don't want to fly. I think it's a stupid rule you can only fly on the day of the game.
Well, then the PA shouldn't have begged for it. Like, you can't have it both ways. If it's not a big deal, don't make it a big deal and put it in the CBA. Let teams do whatever the hell they want.
It was a 90-minute difference here too. It wasn't like it was a huge difference. Oh, okay. Well, Bart Oman saying, "Who gives a crap?" On to the Marbles. I give a crap. So.
He does. That being said, I'm pumped for this marble race, our final one before tomorrow's big finale. Do we have a theme? Do we have a theme song from?
Yeah. So they didn't know there were going to be there. So there's going to be a finale theme tomorrow.
Oh, excellent.
So there's going to be a special one, but there isn't. So we'll have to pick. If you want to pick your favorite one of all of them.
You know what? Dealer's choice. Dude, you're in control.
Oh, dealer's choice.
We don't need to drag it out. Whichever one.
Okay, I'll pick one. Okay, I'll give you my favorite. This one might have been my favorite one.
Oh, one bird. Hustler, sing some Union songs.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love it. All right, let's hear a little bit of Tristan Rivers music before our final qualifying marble race for the Tournament of Champions.
Okay. Everyone's like, why are we talking about Toronto on Winnipeg? Didn't know this was Maple Leafs lunch here.
Jets play in a one-team league. It's just that's it. We have no idea. Who are they playing tonight? We're not telling you. That would go against our mandate just to focus on Winnipeg.
Okay, I'll do my favorite. This one was my favorite, one of my favorite ones. I couldn't get it out of my head. So here it is.
It's Friday. Another week of work's gone by. You deserve to treat yourself. Maybe an ice cream kick or a bottle of rye. On the whole day, yeah, so lax you can't deny. Why use effort even for pleasure? Give blind luck a try. It's time to do a marble race. No skill separating best to worst. Marble race. Just type marbles with the punctuation first. Marble race. Don't spam or you will suffer. Oh, let's play marble race. Get to your mark before it's too late. Set, go.
All right, the Backstreet Boys / Bon Jovi version of the marble race theme. All right, good luck to everyone. If you have not yet qualified, this is your final chance. And I guess what we'll do after the show, we'll tweet out the 3 qualifiers from the webpage contest. So
Yes.
I guess if you haven't done that already, you got about 5 minutes to get that in. winnipegsportstalk.com/marbles. All right, Remo, how many people and where are we going today?
Yeah, just to be clear, that was the Backstreet Boys version, but everyone in chat that day thought it was Bon sounded like Bon Jovi, and I can see it. And Tristan's like, oh yeah, it does sound like Bon Jovi. So we have 216 marbles in. Some people are requesting the dojo for a classic one to finish it off.
Yeah, I like it. Into the dojo, only three marbles will escape the dojo.
I'm just picturing, so that song, I would walk around my house and sing with a high nasally voice, more high nasally than it normally is. Marble race. new Bon Jovi, not in his prime Bon Jovi, Bon Jovi now.
This was good. All right, 216, top 3 in. Oh, by the way, some breaking news for all of you WST listeners. I have an extra shout out to my friends at Win City Pub. They just sent me over a pair of tickets for the game tonight. So we'll if you win today, just in the chat right afterwards, let us know whether you can make the game, and if so, I will send them to you. But anyways, we got an extra prize today, some tickets for tonight's game between the Canucks and, of course, what everyone really wants, the opportunity to be in the mix for tomorrow's championship race. Bomber season tickets on the line from Consolidated Supply. We're in the dojo. 3 marbles will survive. Let's drop them, Reem.
Here we go. I love this. It reminds me of Beverly Hills Ninja, the movie with Chris Farley. That's what I think when I hear dojo.
Here we go. What do we got here? This is always an interesting start of the dojo. I only know who's coming in, who's coming out first. Okay, we've got Maxine Peters is in the mix there. It's very hard to read.
Yeah, North End Ninja is one with Merle Peters. I see Bozeman in there as well.
Oh, Bozeman. Shorn needs a big qualification. Oh, Bailey. The dojo. There's a few people getting thrown over the top rope here right now.
I don't remember this many eliminations at the dojo. This is
No,
crazy.
to be honest, I don't either.
I thought this was like an easy one.
All right. Oh, there's more. Oh, someone's getting thrown way up. Are they going to make it or get thrown out?
Oh, this is nuts.
This is, yeah. Listen, I don't remember there being this many casualties of the dojo, to be perfectly honest.
This is a bloodbath.
This is a bloodbath. Okay, who's that in first place there?
Smalley.
Okay, Al Broderick and Alana Sutton. One of these are going to get thrown up and actually land in it. But Smokey, Al Broderick, Alana. We got Marshall Caron. Marshall would be, if we could get in there. Smokey right now looking good.
There goes Al.
Alana Sutton. Man, there are so many casualties here. The dojo taking no prisoners. Looks like Smokey's going to get this done. Smokey's in. Dom Zappia. Attaboy, Dom. And Cairley.
K9.
K9. Nicely done. Nicely done. All right, Smokey. Just let us know in chat right now. Are you there? If you can use the tickets tonight. If you can make the game.
Oh, shout out to the top 10. I see Leslie in there. I think that's a pretty good finish for Leslie. Greg M was putting out the good vibes in the chat. Tico Napali's already qualified in at number 4.
Yeah, Tico Napali's already in.
I believe it's Smalley, not Smokey, but I like
Smalley?
I like Smokey.
Oh, Smalley. As I say, for some reason, when we get to this, when there's a lot of marbles, it gets a little pixelated when we're running it, and I have a hard time running. But yes, Smoley, Dom Zappia, and I believe K9. So Smoley, where are you at? Let us know. I guess I'm a little backed up here because we're a little ahead when we're doing it. Lyndon Radichenka taking his time. Will Lyndon get burned by the fire, or will he make it in? Amazing to have stuck around that long. All right, great stuff. So, folks, tomorrow, Smoley, Dom, Zappia, and what's the third one again, Reem?
One sec.
K9.
I believe it was K9, Keye9.
Perfect. Okay, Dom, send us an email with your contact info, winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com. K9, do the same. And Smoley, do the same. And let me know whether you can make the game tonight. I see you there in chat. So, fire that over. winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com. All right. Well, folks, enjoy the game tonight. I'm actually going to be jumping on the OB pregame show around 5 if you want to check that out with Kelly Moore and I believe John Shannon. And tomorrow for the show, Reem, of course, we'll have our this is a great way to finish up 2022 with 3 of our favorites, Murata Tesh, Ken Wiebe, and Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. And then at this same very time, the Consolidated Supply Tournament of Champions finishes up. And we will be able to give out Barber season tickets to the first marble across the way. But there's been it's been quite a run through the month of December, Remo. This has been one of the most fun things we've ever done.
Yeah, this has been. I know people are coming in and everyone's excited, and Frosty's been wanting us to give it to the last person. I don't want to do. We're giving it to the win. We're going with the winner. So we got a number of regulars in the list.
This is excellence in marbles, not slowness. This is the biggest prize we've ever had.
Yeah,
to give away. And anyways, make sure you're with us tomorrow. The big matchup, and can't wait for it. But yeah, we got to get out. Thanks again. Send us your email, your contact info, winners, winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com. And that is going to do it for us. Enjoy the game tonight. Fingers crossed this streak can be broken. And we'll be talking about a win, and the vibes will be good heading into the big marble race tomorrow and the weekend and New Year's Eve with the Jets taking on the Edmonton Oilers in Edmonton. By the way, just beware, we may mention the Oilers a couple times tomorrow night. Tomorrow on the show. Just saying.
We didn't call Tom Gazzola or Dusty to talk Oilers. I know the chat.
I would have normally done that, but we've got Marat, we've got Ken, we got Hacksaw. A lot of good stuff coming up tomorrow, all finishing off with the final race of the Tournament of Champions and apparently a special championship version of the Marbles theme song by Tristan Rivers Music. So, folks, we'll see you tomorrow. Enjoy the game tonight. Thanks to all the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day, and to all of you for hanging out with us. We'll see you tomorrow to get things going one more time in 2022 on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Tell a friend, get them to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll catch you tomorrow for a big Friday show on WST. Have a great one.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.